Hello, and welcome to The Fool and the Philosopher.
The Philosopher and The Fool.
I want to start with a update to corrections to our previous episode. Or not exactly corrections, but we were talking about parents saying, because I said so.
No.
Right, if you remember that.
Yes.
So it's like, I want to do this. No, why? Because I said so.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't have a good answer for that, because I said there should be cases where parents just say, this is what you have to do. And you didn't like it so much and were unsure. Yeah. And I was unsure about the correct situation. So the next day I was going for a walk and it came to me, the answer. And the interesting thing about the answer is it's very simple. But we were already in an unhealthy mindset. We were already approaching the entire problem wrong. So the thing we were talking about last time was a parent says to their kid, do this thing. And the kid says, why? And the parent says, because I said so, right?
Yeah. And
that isn't a great way for things to go. How the conversation... I just had a second thought and I was trying to follow. So how the conversation should go is the parent should say to the kid, do this thing. And the kid says, I don't want to. And the parent says, objection noted.
Your parent's a lawyer or a judge.
No. What I mean by that is the kid isn't saying what they want.
Mm.
Because the kid doesn't think they will be listened to. So they're asking the parent to justify themselves because the kid doesn't feel like if they state their own preference that anything will happen.
Yeah.
So the kid needs to be in a position where they can say, I disagree, I don't want to. And then the parent doesn't get to say back, why don't you want to? Because no, the kid has a right to say no. Mm-hmm. And the parent has to listen. And so they say, objection noted. Or you don't have to literally say objection noted. You have to say, okay, I see that, okay, we're going home, party's over. And the kid's like, I want to stay. It's like, okay, I get that you want to stay, but we're going.
Yeah.
You have to listen to the kid. You can even say to the kid, okay, party's over. Look, it's getting late. You got school tomorrow. You can explain it to the kid, but you don't really need to explain it to the kid, I don't think. You just need to prove that you're listening. The explanation isn't really what matters there. It just proves that you're like, yeah, I thought that this is a lot of fun, kid, but we got to get going. It's getting, you have to, if you tell the kid that you listen to them, but you're still the final authority, that's the proper way to do it. And that kind of resolves the whole issue that we were having, because we were thinking about in terms of not saying what you want.
Mm. Yes.
And so this led me on to a bigger thing, which is that, well, first of all, no one should justify themselves on anything. As a first principle, you don't need to justify yourself.
Yes.
If you like something, you like it. If you don't like it, you don't like it. And people don't get to question you on that. You can have an interesting conversation. Okay, let's talk about this. This sounds fun. Why do you like this? What do you think? Why do you like Lego so much? Well, it's this really but you don't. If you're playing with Lego and you say, I love Lego, and I'm like, well, why do you like Lego? That's actually me saying to you, you shouldn't like Lego. But I'm too much of a coward to say that.
Mm.
Right. But we can have an interesting conversation about Lego. And we can be like, well, where does your love... if I'm actually genuinely curious, where does your love of Lego come in?
So it all comes down to linguistic cowardice.
Yes. Absolute cowardice. And so, here is the rules for...
Oh, I just want to... We actually had I got your point there and added to it. Sorry. Just feels like, whoa.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty awesome, huh? Yeah. I was just going for a walk and bam, God peed in my ear. little kidney stones of wisdom.
Continue. You can.
That's why the brain's wrinkly. It's been in the water too long. So, the order of what'd you call it? Linguistic.
Cowardice.
Yeah. So the order of linguistic propriety, maybe, is, first of all, state what you want in the nicest way possible. So this is, okay, so I'm going to say from the best way to talk to the worst way to talk, okay? So best way to talk is to say what you want in the nicest way possible. The second best way to talk is say what you want rudely. Third, hint at what you want in the nicest way possible. And then the worst is, of course, hint at what you want rudely.
Yeah.
So you'll notice that I put hint at what you want nicely. Below, say what you want rudely.
Yeah.
Which is to say, it's better to say, I want to go on a date with you, it'd to say, it'd sure be nice to hang out sometime.
Yeah.
For a number of reasons. The first one, you say, well, that'll make the person want to go away. It's like, yeah, fine. Then you'll learn something, and they'll learn something. And if they don't want to go away, you're perfect for each other. It's win-win.
I've known a relationship like that, actually.
That's win-win. That is a good thing. You want people to dislike you, and you want to dislike people. That doesn't mean you should be rude to everyone just so they dislike you. It means you should be yourself and speak in the way you want to speak. And it's better to be honest and upfront. So a very important thing here. So what I said, you shouldn't say, it would sure be nice to hang out sometime, right? Yeah. So if you want to go on a date with someone, or let's say you don't want to actually go on a date with them, you want to marry them. That's what you should say. I want to marry you. You've never met them before and you look at them and say, I want to marry you. You're not going to marry them. They're going to run away. But they might not. And if they don't, then they're perfect. But that doesn't mean you should lie just because you think they'll run away. And, I can see a danger here, right? For highly autistic people, where is the oversharing line? Because that doesn't mean you should go up to every person that looks slightly pretty and say, I want to marry you. I want to say you need to listen to yourself, but some people don't have that capability. So that's a gray area again, which is annoying.
Yeah. I mean, even though I want to marry you, a certain extent of people is, I want to find out if I want to marry you.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. A sane person wants to know if they want to, like, you go on at least one date, right? Like, just to know if the person's not a serial killer or something.
Yeah.
Like, the whole courtship thing we have right now, maybe it's ridiculous. Like, in medieval ages, it wasn't a thing, right? But except between lower class men and upper class women, basically. But
I can see that.
It was the only way men could raise their class, basically, was to be really, really awesome.
Yeah.
And be like, look how cool I am. I'm better than and you're not going to be marrying like the queen. You're going to be marrying like her third cousin's like fourth child or something.
Yeah.
But it was, from what I understand, it was the only dating that was going on was low class men to high class women.
And then what was the case for them? Was it just, hey, let's get married, or be really practical to get married?
Yeah. Well, I think it was basically like, well, if everyone's living together already, right? You have your sweetheart.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you're going on dates together. It just means like, you're the one for me. Okay, we're 16, let's get married, that sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny because I don't know if you can do this in your own experience. I'm not sure, but I was thinking about this when I was in elementary school.
Yeah.
So these were all my peers, right, my age. And I think it was about roughly equal girls and boys. I'm not sure. It might have been like 30-60, something like that.
Yeah.
Or 40-60. But by the time I got to grade 7, all the girls had left. But at that very young age, let's say when I was 6, there was an interesting aspect which I think modern business maybe is responsible for this problem. I'm not sure, because all these girls moved away, right? And also a bigger, just populations. It's not a small village anymore. So all the girls that didn't move away moved to different schools.
Yeah.
But I think it would have been fairly easy to say that this girl is going to end up with this guy or this guy. This girl is going to end up with this guy or this guy. And this girl is going to end up with this guy or this guy. Like, everyone...
Given the limitations, like if the population was literally just the school and their parents.
Yeah, but everyone, like, for example, for me, everyone used to tease me and this other girl, like, oh, you guys like each other, each other. And they also teased her and this other boy. And, oh, you guys like each other. So it was basically him or me, right? That was sort of like... And I don't think either of us were against that concept. It was like, yeah, makes sense. And you could see that for most of the girls.
Yeah. It's weird. From my experience with that, it was very young, basically, for me. But it was only me and one other person, actually, that we had that lineup. There was no one else in my class like that, with that lineup. It was me and, I guess, my childhood sweetheart, so to say. And then, I don't know why it didn't go anywhere, but it didn't go anywhere.
But
yeah, no.
Yeah, the childhood sweetheart, that's a great term.
Yeah, but I think I was the only person in my class that really had that. Although maybe it not going anywhere is part of the reason why I didn't see it in anyone else, is I'm oblivious to many things.
So it could be that... Okay, so what I'm getting at anyways is that if you are in the mindset of, I want to marry every person I come across,
Yeah.
then you shouldn't be listening to yourself.
Yes.
You need to come up with some rules for yourself that make sense, because not everyone out there is a person you should be marrying. Now, if you're a person, you've had plenty of opportunities, you're well put together, you've got a good job, you're clean, you're nice, you've got everything going for you, and everyone likes you, and you've just never been interested in any girls, right? Let's say, and you're like,
And you're probably gay.
let's say you're 23 or something, right? And then you see this girl and you're like, I want to marry her. Then that could be a time when you just go up to them and say, I want to marry you. That is possible, because it shows that you have actually had... Now, this is only if you've had opportunity all along and you didn't take it, right? But this shows that you have some standard, you have some sensibility of some sort. So I think most of the time, though, people don't want to marry. They want to date, because you don't want to marry a stranger.
Yeah. Well, we don't have that little village anymore, so in a lot of cases you don't know all about that person. Like, when the little village is, well, that's the smith's son, so he's going to be a smith. Yeah. So I know him, I know what he's going to do.
Well, also, you've just interacted with him your whole life.
That's why I said I know him, I know what he's going to do.
Yeah.
Like,
but what they're going to do doesn't matter as much as basically them not being a psychopath or narcissist. Like, I think basically anyone can get married with anyone as long as they don't have major personality disorders. And even then, I think basically as long as they don't have any cluster B personality disorders. I think cluster A and cluster C are probably fine for marriage. Like, your life will be hell if you marry someone with cluster A, but they're not a bad person.
Cluster A is narcissism?
Schizophrenia.
Schizophrenia.
Narcissism is within cluster B.
Okay, what's C?
OCD.
Okay.
So it's basically, I think the colloquial terms are cluster A is eccentricity.
Yeah.
Although schizophrenia can be a lot more than just mildly eccentric. Like, you can be mad, like absolutely, like the voices are telling me to kill everyone type of thing.
Schizophrenia is the archetypal raving, loony, bonkers mad, right?
Yeah, so that's called the eccentric. And then cluster B is called the, I can't remember. It's like
vile snake.
It's like the selfish or something like that.
Okay.
But then cluster C is the insane, because OCD is like true OCD is hell. They're all hellish in their own way. OCD is basically all your mechanisms that are supposed to protect and improve you working against you, because you're constantly doubting everything. You're ruminating constantly. You're pulling everything apart. You think you could be a pedophile all the time. You're like, am I a pedophile? I have to isolate from everyone. I should kill myself, get myself out of this world. I saw this kid had a nice smile. That means I'm a pedophile. Like, it's stuff like that.
In Slowly Guards of Silent Things, is the main character OCD or?
I don't...
Because there's that thing where you have to organize and tap things and...
Yeah, that's OCPD, yeah. True O OCD is a variant of it. So there's OCD, OCPD, and True O OCD.
Okay.
And so I was describing True O, but they're all within the cluster C, along with a few other things.
Because, the obsessive compulsive towards your physical surrounding.
And the thing to keep in mind as well is that you can exhibit obsessive compulsive behavior and not be diagnosed with excessive compulsive personality disorder.
It's only a disorder when it's...
when it's destroying your life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, for example, for me, I have a lot of OCPD tendencies. Yeah. Like, I ruminate on things. I constantly cycle things through my mind. I have all these doubts. I have little rituals. I wash my hands 15 times a day unnecessarily. But it's not to a crippling level. Like, my hands aren't bleeding. They're not getting rashes. Yeah. They're not it's just... Or I do stuff like I go downstairs to check if the stove is on every 30 minutes, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Right. It's a much milder thing. So I wouldn't count that as a... And you're not actually diagnosed until you get a diagnosis anyways. But
yes.
But I wouldn't get a diagnosis if I went in, basically, is my...
Yeah.
So that's the other thing when autism, I mentioned it briefly, but it's everyone's autistic now. It's and by that I'd mean that it's so massively
easy to diagnose someone with?
No, it's more like everyone's just called autistic and they're not. It's not destroying your life. I saw this comic or this comment, sorry, that was great, where the person said, Autistic is when you see a crowd of people and you run away screaming, ah! It's not like, oh, I have trouble understanding if that person was happy or not. Like that is on this autistic spectrum.
Yeah.
But everything is a spectrum, right? Like they say, well, it's a spectrum. It's like, yeah, but so's OCD. So's psychopathy.
Yeah.
So's so's narcissism and borderline.
I saw a diagnosis of someone, and he's not a psychopath, but he has psychopathic tendencies was in his diagnosis. And so he's like further up the scale being a psychopath than most people.
Yeah.
But he's not a psychopath.
Well, psychopath is, it's not in the DSM-5,
No.
but even if it was, it's kind of a weird one because, well, it's kind of like cluster B actually in some ways. It's not really your problem. Well, it is. Psychopath is actually part of cluster B, but it's not your problem. It's everyone else's problem.
Yes.
So, and psychopath especially, like antisocial personality disorder, you're going to get thrown in jail a lot.
Yeah. I was just thinking that it's not your problem, the psychopath. Is when you're diagnosed as a psychopath, you should have this giant yellow necklace that says, "Warning, I am a psychopath."
Well, that's the thing with antisocial personality disorder. They are violent, they hate authority, they're argumentative, they're always getting into fights. They'll probably get suspended from school, they'll probably go to prison. So it is actually like, even though you aren't suffering exactly, the rest of the world hates you enough to make you suffer.
Yeah.
And then borderline, again, it's the rest of the world is so disgusted by you that you're lonely.
Yeah.
And narcissist, if you get caught out, you're going to be lonely too. But I think for all of them, including psychopath, maybe with the exception of antisocial personality disorder, actually, is that you almost need like God or the 42 judges of Egyptian mythology to make it a disorder, because you yourself are not getting a lot of the time punished for. You're basically just making everyone else's life hell, right? Although a psychopath unusually can choose not to, which is among that group. However,
Well, don't psychopaths tend to not make everyone else's life hell because there's the reflection of, if I make other people's lives good, that makes my life good?
yeah, to a degree, they tend to have friends and family that they care about,
Yeah.
and then they're just ruthless with everyone else.
Yeah.
And so if they were like alone on the battlefield with an enemy soldier, and to tie them up, like they have them disarmed, and to tie them up would be like an extra 5 seconds of their time, let's say.
Yeah.
They might just shoot them because it's easier and then walk back. But they still care about their country that they're fighting for, or their friends, or whatever it might be that they're fighting for. But I think with all of them, except maybe antisocial personality disorder, APD, I should just to save my tongue, the effort. Your soul is suffering. You're running scared.
Yeah.
You're being a coward that isn't confronting the reality of your life and your emotions and what is good and what is right. Now I don't know enough, like psychopath again, it's a tricky one. Sociopath, which I also don't know if is in the DSM or not, but from what I understand, that's more of a
Pop culture, I thought.
yeah, but I think the distinction that people like to use is that sociopath is by choice, whereas psychopath is by birth. So basically,
A sociopath is someone trying to be a psychopath?
yeah, it's a traumatic response.
Yeah.
So I know someone that is a psychopath allegedly, and why would I trust a psychopath to tell me that they were, though? So they could be a compulsive liar.
Well, that's why I'm saying they need the big
Yeah.
label on them.
But they apparently, again, they could be a compulsive liar, had a horrible thing happen to them. And they decided they didn't want to feel emotions. And so it is very fitting that it's put in cluster B, because I have a theory about cluster B, which is that the whole disorder, because it's kind of confusing, because they're like, well, borderline's kind of like narcissist. They used to say borderline is female, narcissist is male, and it's the same thing basically. And then they said, well, no, men can be borderline and women can be narcissists, and it's different.
Yeah.
But then they're like, well, you can be a borderline narcissist or a narcissistic borderline or covert narcissist, which is similar to an overt borderline. Like, they're like, it's all very blurry. And then your histrionic is very similar to borderline in a lot of
That's
ways.
why cluster B is just useful.
Yeah, so they're not really sure where the lines begin and end. And I think Sam Vaknin, he said that he thinks that they're all post-traumatic stress responses, which would factor into the psychopath I was talking about.
Yeah.
But I think it's not just a post-traumatic stress response. I think it's specifically avoiding pain. I think that you're running from pain, and it becomes a sort of sunk cost fallacy because every time you avoid pain, as a borderline, let's say, you drive people further away. And if you admit that to yourself, well, it's going to hurt like crazy. And the problem is, until you admit it to yourself, it's going to hurt worse and worse and worse when you do.
It's the dragon under the under the carpet.
Yeah, it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and you're going to have to fight it one day. But
it might get so big it'll kill you.
Yeah, if you keep waiting, it's going to become impossible to kill. And
it seems to be the case that kids quite often inherit that dragon.
Well, it's like Sam Vaknin said, it's a post-traumatic stress response, right? So you're abused by your parents who have it, and then the only way you know how to adapt is everything they've taught you.
Yeah.
And so what often happens is narcissistic parents, their kids become borderline, or narcissistic, and then borderline, often they become borderline.
Yeah, well, I think there's a reason why the Bible has the sins of the father shall be passed down 7 generations.
Yeah.
It's basically saying that you will have the same problems that your parents did to an extent.
Yeah, well, because they taught you everything you know, and what they know is wrong, or they hit you. This is another thing, is it can also be that you are in such an abusive situation, and it doesn't have to be a narcissist or borderline. It can be like a physically abusive parent, whatever it might be. You can be in such an abusive situation that the only logical solution that anyone would give you, well, their logical solution would be get away. Go. But let's say you're trapped with this family for whatever reason. The only logical solution might be to become borderline or narcissist, just to survive, essentially. Just to survive emotionally. Like, you have to cut yourself off. You have to disconnect. You have to put your feelings into someone else so that you don't have to experience it for yourself. So a lot of trauma responses are logical in the moment. It's like when people come back from like an artillery war, like World War I, World War II.
Yeah.
If you hear thunder and you dive under your bed, that's a very good thing to be doing if you're in the trenches on World War I.
Yeah.
That's completely logical. That's going to keep you alive. The people that have that response are the people that are going to survive that war.
Yeah.
But for that to be ingrained enough to be useful, that means when you come back, your very useful thing is now maladaptive.
Yeah. I mean, in Peaky Blinders, the main character is a war veteran, and his trauma is the enemy dug into the trenches and tried to kill him. And so he wakes up screaming a lot.
Yeah.
And then in season 1, someone breaks into his house while he's sleeping and tries to kill him. And so he wakes up screaming because he hears a small sound in his room and he fights the person off. So I mean,
it worked out for him.
I mean, he's a gangster, so the situation he went into after the war.
Well, I don't know the actual history of post-World War I gangsters, but if a lot of them, well, most of them would be war veterans, I guess.
Yeah.
But you could also see that being a way to turn your maladaptive into something positive slightly.
That's basically what season 1 of Peaky Blinders is all about, is it's all these war veterans who have come back to their gangs that their wives, mothers, and sisters have been running.
I'm pretty sure the Peaky Blinders in reality were disbanded in 1985 or something. Oh, sorry, 1885.
Yeah.
I don't think they existed after World War I. So can't take the show as perfectly historical.
Yeah, but I'd say that's what the show is about.
But it's showing that idea. Yeah. I just don't know if gangs were actually... Yeah, well, it works as an idea anyways, whether or not it's true.
Well, it's interesting because it's the two cases. So in Peaky Blinders, gangsters were veterans, and then you have all the police who are veterans, and they fought alongside each other in the war.
Yeah.
And now they're head to head. And then you throw some communists in there and some Irish terrorists. That's the show.
Well, it's a great ground for storytelling, because these people all know each other. They were all friends that would die for each other, and any story where you can make two friends enemies is great. That's why everyone loves Julius Caesar versus Pompey, like the two best friends that went to war against each other, and that's real. I mean,
I don't think everyone has a love for that story, and I don't know if they're best friends.
Julius Caesar married Pompey's daughter.
Okay.
Because they were best friends. He was like, hey,
You're my best friend. I'll marry your daughter. Man, the Greeks were different.
no, these are Romans. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, the Romans, the ancient people were different.
Yeah, that's what you did. It's like if you really liked your friend, you married their 20-year younger than you daughter.
Yeah.
That's how you show you're a bro. What, you don't want to be a bro? Why don't you marry my daughter? It's like you were at her baby shower and you don't want to marry her? I invited you to her baby shower.
I just got to the point in Half-Blood Prince where Harry really wants to go out with Ginny and she just broke up with Dean Thomas. He's like, but Ron's my mate. I can't do that to him. But he's my mate. Maybe that's the only person he let date his sister. And it's like going through that turmoil.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that is a very real turmoil. She did a good job there.
Yeah.
So with a narcissist, a adaptive strategy to deal with a narcissist can be to please them in every way possible. Essentially to serve them, become their slave. And the problem with it is, it makes both of you happier because they're no longer screaming and yelling at you. And so you're happy and they're happy because they're getting served hand on foot and all their needs are being met, right? The problem with it is narcissists get bored, and so they will actually, even if you do that, they will try to hurt you at some point. And they'll try to, break you away. Because everyone in Cluster B, they do this thing called splitting, where people are all good or all bad. And so either you're the worst thing in the world or you're the best thing in the world. And it can just kind of snap, and flip. So it becomes tricky. But, so you can basically become subservient to the narcissist. And let's say they never snap on you for whatever reason. And so it's very beneficial for both of you. In theory, it's beneficial for both of you, right? They are responsible for all your emotions. And the big problem that I was getting at was even society says this is what you should do. And you're like, well, no, it doesn't. It doesn't say you should serve a narcissist, but it does because everyone says the most important thing is serving others. You find the most joy in helping others. You find the most joy in serving others. And so people think that they are doing what people mean when you say that, and they think, oh yeah, you should help others, you should. But the thing that isn't said with that is that you cannot help others at the cost of your own needs. And you're like, well, I'm not greedy, I don't need to be going out with my friends all the time. I can help out my mother with her laundry. I don't need to. And no, you have to have all your needs met. And the thing is that if you have all your needs met, you're doing everything for yourself, you're doing everything you want to do, you don't have to help anyone because it'll spill out of you.
Yes.
If you're rich and happy and healthy and you're walking along and you see a kid and he's standing in front of a store with his resume and he's looking really scared, you just smile and you remember when you were that kid and you're like, you pat him on the back and you're like, go get it, champ. Kid you've never seen before, let's say, and you're like, go get it, champ. It costs you nothing and maybe even makes your day better. And that kid's like, yeah, I can do this. And he goes in and his life is improved, right? Or, you're rich, you're happy, you're healthy. You're like, I'm going to donate to this charity. I'm going to donate to this church. But for some reason, that little bit gets missed all the time. And Jordan Peterson did this as well, where he was saying oh yeah, at the end, the happiest thing you do is serving others or something. And he doesn't go into the depth of there is a horrible trap for borderlines in there. Because borderlines think that means you need to serve everyone, and then they become horribly resentful.
Yeah.
And they become, or you even become narcissistic and you become resentful. You just start hating everyone, and you're like, well, I'm doing this because I'm so good, I'm so special, and it makes you angrier and angrier. But you're doing it to prove to yourself that you are the best person ever because look how selfless I am. I'm doing this. You're not doing it because you actually care about anyone. You can't do something to prove you care about someone, and that doesn't mean. The other problem is then you get into hypocrisy where it's like, well, you don't really care. It's like, no, if you're doing a good deed, you're doing a good deed. But stop doing it if you're hurting yourself. And you are hurting yourself. And so the question is, when do you sacrifice yourself for other people? Right? Because you're like, well, sometimes you have to sacrifice yourself for other people, right? And the answer to that, which is a relief to have an answer to this, is that, I think anyways, only sacrifice yourself for people, one, that you love probably would be best.
Yeah.
and if it would make them happy, and you know it'd make them happy, you can't just mind read and hope it'll do something. They have to say like, hey, do you want to go to the park? I know you don't really like running, but it'd just be really fun to go running with you. And you're like, I hate running. But it's for them, right? And so, okay, there's a very, very important step here. Only make the sacrifice on occasion. Don't do it always, but only make the sacrifice if you are doing it because you genuinely think it'll make them happy, or whatever emotion you want, like just have a good time. Not because you are afraid of their reaction if you say no. Yeah. Because that's what it is a lot of the time. Even with our mom's new dog, right? She wants to play like, chasing around the stove with a toy or something. Yeah. And it's like, okay, do I want to do this to make her happy even though I don't want to play it? Or am I doing it because if I don't, then she'll be like clawing at my leg. And I'm afraid of that. Or she'll whine, or she'll bark, or she'll look sad. Yeah. Or if you're even afraid, like, oh, they'll be a bit sad if I don't do this, then don't do it. Afraid of their reaction doesn't mean, well, it'd make them happy, no. You have to think that they will be completely neutral if you say no. Yeah. You can't even say, well, it would make them a little bit sad if I said no. It's like, no, that is not a good reason to do something. Do not do it.
Yeah. There's also the other side of that, which is brutal, which is some people whose whole life has sort of been in that situation. Like, a lot of my friends really don't like people giving them gifts. I don't know if that's the same for your friends.
That's kind of me and my friend up the road there. My best friend gives us both gifts all the time, and we're like, stop it, please.
Yeah, so a friend of mine, I think I've told this before in the podcast, but I wanted to get them like 2 audiobooks that I thought they'd enjoy. And they went ahead and bought them on Audible. And I said, what are the prices of those? And like, why does it matter? I said, what are the prices of those? And they told me, and so I took out some like cash, gave it to them. So there, I bought that for you. It's like, no, I can't take this. Like, I'm giving you to this freely. Like, you are not beholden to me in any way. If I give a gift, it is a gift. It is not a trade.
Yeah, and you're allowed to throw it out. I've had people get angry at me for not using their presents, and it's like, well, it's not really a present, is it?
Yeah. No, it's very much...
It's an obligation.
Yeah, it's... Like, I think if someone... I don't know the best response. The righteous response to someone acting like that is, so was that an exchange? Was that a trade? Or was that a gift? That's the righteous response. I don't...
No, I've said that. I've been...
I don't know if the righteous response does anything but make you feel...
If it makes you feel better, that's good enough, right?
I mean, maybe. I mean, I don't know. Righteous fury... Like, there's a righteous fury which can be a force to actually do something in the world. It sounds kind of dark. But I don't know if righteous fury can have any benefit unless it ends in a mace.
No, I think...
Like, I don't mean it has to be overt violence, but it... Like, if you're faced by righteous fury and you're a sneak...
It's a way to give courage to yourself.
Okay.
And that's kind of its danger as well, is because courage lets you go against your first response and instincts, right? That's what courage is, basically. And that means that you can, when you combine courage with anger, it can be dangerous because you can act completely improperly. Yeah. I mean, as we did when we burned that book. That's one thing. The new copy's in, by the way. It's all in place. Oh, so made up for the mistake. Not a cheap book either. Kind of ridiculous that they're selling them for that much, but hopefully that means they won't sell many.
They realize they get burnt a lot. And then the only people who burn them are righteous, good people who have to go and buy a new copy to make up for the mistakes.
I thought that's
That'd be such a niche racket.
Well, I thought it weird that people will buy books to burn them. Like, no, you either rob it from the store, you throw your copy out after the author was revealed to be a horrible person. Like, I'm not saying you should burn books at all, right? But let's say you're into book burning, and it turns out that J.K. Rowling's this massive transphobe. Then you burn all your Harry Potter books, right? You do not go to the store, give me every copy of Harry Potter you have.
There's a deep irony, I didn't realize it, but there's a deep irony to what's happened to her. Which is, after reading Goblet of Fire, but then Order of the Phoenix, her life kind of became Harry's life from Order of the Phoenix.
Yeah, well, I keep talking about this. It's about how awful the press and the government are. That's what the books are about.
that's what they're partly about.
Yeah, like I said, you can't just reduce a book down. But I've said this for years. It's like these books are about how the press will turn on you. Like Harry was their golden boy, then they turned on him and they smeared him, and then the only place you could go for news was the Quibbler, which was the ridiculous entertainment-based news.
Yeah.
And now you've got Tucker Carlson, who's the only guy doing like journalism these days, it seems like. And that's not good because, from what I understand, maybe I'm wrong, but I've heard intimations anyways. Well, it's the problem, right? If he's the only guy doing the journalism, he can show you whatever he wants. Because if it's like 1% more true than everyone else, he can still put a whole lot of his own message in there. He doesn't even have to lie. They didn't lie with January 6th. They just showed like the only 6 like minutes there was of like windows being smashed.
Yeah.
But they didn't show like the 3 hours of people walking around. But that doesn't mean that they lied. It just they showed one narrative. But now Tucker Carlson is showing a different narrative.
Yeah.
And that could also be a huge misleading thing. Like, who knows? Maybe there's photos of them beating up someone in a basement somewhere that neither of the sides are showing for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Or like Freedom Tunes did something where he showed that the reason they want to shut it all down is because everyone was partying and they weren't letting...
They didn't want one person to have the party.
They didn't want one person to know they hadn't been invited to the party.
Yeah.
And, I mean, that could be it. Because I've heard the way politics used to be done in America was actually kind of like that, where everyone would go up on stage and yell at each other for their party, and then they'd go back and get drinks together.
Yeah.
Which I think it's not a great idea to make yourself appear more divisive than you are. I think it's nice to show... Like, I really liked it when Trudeau won for the first time, and he and Stephen Harper hugged on stage. I was like, oh, that's really nice. This sort of peaceful transfer of power of the one guy just like, yeah, we're all Canadian here in the end.
Yeah.
And then Trudeau didn't live up to that in the slightest, but it was nice in that moment.
You know, I guess you have to say, but I just found it like going through Order of the Phoenix, how crazy the book she wrote, her life.
Well, that's why I've been saying they are not going to convince her in the slightest. Yeah. She knows all their tricks. She knows exactly what they're doing. Yeah. She's proven that she knows it, and she knows that the only thing you can do is stand firm.
Well,
it's also, like, you're not going to make her back down.
I don't know if like books. I think they do actually reflect the character of the author, because you can't help in writing a book unless you're a psychopath, maybe.
Orson Scott Card.
What's that called? Cognitive dissonance.
What do you mean? Like he's going into some sort of weird dissociative state while writing?
Well, either that or he just has his beliefs, and because I don't think he's an awful person. I think he's a very religious person. Yeah. No, I don't think he's an awful person at all. It's just his books are so different from his own professed beliefs. It's amazing. Like, it's impressive. I think it's really, really cool. Yeah. But one of the things was my friends were talking about Gringotts from the movie, and they filmed it in a Jewish bank. And so it has the Star of David. And they were very much comparing the goblins to Jewish people, which is a thing that's being done before, and saying that Rowling did that. And I was saying to them, this is you guys being the racist, seeing that here. And they're like, no, like, she's done this with trans people. I want to put past her. I know for a fact that most of you have read Harry Potter, and one of her biggest themes in the book is the mistreatment of half-humans, the mistreatment of elves, the mistreatment of muggles and mudbloods, and like, so many of the problems in that world exist because
of the homosexual werewolves.
Ignoring the werewolf.
I'm right about that.
So many of the problems exist in the wizarding world, even with the werewolves, because they are discriminated against, or the purebloods are taught to hate mudbloods.
Okay, but counterpoint, right? Goblins have beady little eyes and they're incredibly greedy. How could they not be Jews?
See, that's...
Yeah, I know. It's a horrible argument to make.
But it's like, it's not even like, oh, she's done this with trans people. Stuff like, no, like, look at the books literally spell out that most of the wrong in the world, of the wizard world, comes from that sort of thinking.
And even then, right? So Tolkien's dwarves are based on Jewish people.
Are they?
Yeah. His elves are based on Welsh people, and his hobbits are based on British people.
They're based on...
like British country folk.
Yeah.
Yeah. And... yeah, the dwarves are Jewish, I think. I'm pretty sure.
I thought they're Scottish.
No, I'm pretty sure they're Jewish.
I thought they're also...
And
The
I guess my point is that it's very nice to have a cultural base for something. Yeah. So even if the goblins were based on Jews, which I don't really think they are, but let's say they are, right?
I think they're based on goblins, to be perfectly honest.
But let's say they're based on Jews, right?
Yeah.
Did you see the goblins? Like, who cares? They're not bad people.
No.
I mean, they're duplicitous, a lot of them, but it doesn't...
I mean, they have every right to be duplicitous, to be perfectly honest. The wizards aren't that great to them.
Yeah. Yeah, well, they stole all their stuff and they took it from them. Like, if anything, they're more like First Nations people. The way they talk about artifacts and whatnot. Like, this is ours by right because you stole it from us and that sort of thing. Well, forget First Nations. Everyone does that.
Yeah.
There's a bucket in Italy that one city... is it the city... Okay, so it's the city that Ferrari and Porsche, I think, were both founded in. But I don't think they're called Ferrari and Porsche. But there's a bucket that everyone's like, that's our bucket. It's like, no, it's our bucket. We've had it longer. It's like, yeah, that's because you stole it from us.
The War of the Bucket.
Yeah, and you have that with the British Museum, where everyone's like, the British have everyone's stuff. And it's, yeah, and where'd they get it from? And where'd the Romans get it from?
Even on the side of the British has everyone's stuff. With it's very much the story of the Silmarillions. The dwarves claimed ownership of the Silmarillions. It's actually really interesting. And this is the jewels, the crown jewels. It's a very similar story of claiming that the crown jewels belong to India. So the Silmarils, 3 gems, were forged by an amazing gemsmith. And then the dwarves were asked, this is much later on, take these 3 gems and put them into this necklace full of pearls. And the elves would constantly do this. They would like give the gems they forged and like find pearls and give them to the dwarves and ask the dwarves, make them into a necklace, make them into a crown, make them into something. So the dwarves would do that, and then the elves would come back and take them, like, thank you very much for that. And the dwarves like, that necklace is ours. The Silmarillions and that necklace belong to the dwarves, and so Baron's children actually got into a conflict with a group of dwarves who were trying to take that from them. And so the jewels from India were forged into the crown jewels.
Well, that's exactly what happened with the Sword of Godric Gryffindor in Book 7, where the goblin, I forget his name, but he says, the sword is mine. And Harry's like, no, we need it right now. He's like, no, the sword was made by goblin smiths. And then Bill comes along and grabs it, and he's like, and paid for it by wizard coin. Because he actually knows history, because he's an expert in... like mythical monsters.
He's a curse breaker.
Yeah, and so he's and paid for by by wizard gold, and he takes it back. He's like, a wizard commissioned some goblins to make this. It's not yours.
Yeah. I mean, with the British is a little bit different because they did take it, but then again, the British conquest of India is very strange. Very strange.
So, yeah. So back to the date. So autistic people. If you're not behaving correctly to begin with, this isn't permission to go around telling everyone, I want to date you. Although, even in that case, even if you go crazy, you might just run into someone, I don't know, either with the right personality or desperate enough to take you up on it anyways. It could happen.
Yeah.
I actually watched this video where there's this guy, and he'd never been on a date before. And he went around his campus, and he asked out 100 girls, like, would you go on a date with me? Yeah. And, like, it was, like, the most awkward, like, he walked up to them with his camera, and he's like, hey, would you go, like, people he'd never seen before. He's like, would you go on a date with me? And, like, 30 or 40% said yes. Mm-hmm. Like, it was, his success rate was amazing. It's, like,
earnest honesty.
Yeah. You think, like, oh, you gotta have the right game, you gotta have the right this, you gotta have the right that. It's like, no. You just gotta, be interesting. And like, oh, here's a guy that's doing a little experiment. He's doing a little film. That's kind of cool. He's washed. He's dressed clean. Like, he speaks. He's not drunk. He speaks clearly.
You'd be surprised how much having clean hair, a clean face, and good clothes can do for you.
Yeah.
Now, I don't even mean they have to be fancy clothes. I mean they have to be like not covered in stains and like torn up
holes and whatnot.
Yeah.
Well, even then, depends on the kind of holes.
Yeah, it depends on how you handle the style of it being torn off. If you can wear it.
Right. Well, what I mean is, like, there's honest holes, and then there's, like, you don't care about yourself when you dress holes.
Yes.
Yeah. Like, if you're a mechanic and all your clothes have holes, then everyone's going to people can tell pretty easily. It's like, oh, that's got a burn and that's like worn out. And
Yeah.
but if you look like you're wearing like $300 pants and you're wearing like a t-shirt that's like unwashed and falling apart, then it's like you just don't care about yourself.
Yeah.
If you obviously can afford it. But yeah, so it could even work then. So I said it sure would be nice to hang out sometime, right? Is a bad statement. And it's bad for multiple reasons. First of all, you're not being honest with yourself that you want to go on a date with this person, right?
Yeah.
But let's say you don't want to go on a date with them. Let's say you actually do just want to hang out.
Yeah.
The second reason it sucks is because you're not even expressing a want. You're expressing an emotion. You're saying it would be nice to hang out with you sometime.
Yes.
You haven't said anything. You're like, it'd be nice to hang out with you sometime. Oh, thank you. Like, that's actually what you're giving them a compliment. That's all you're doing.
Yeah.
And so at least say, okay, so you can at least hint, I want to hang out with you sometime. At least then you are, but even then, it's like, okay, see you in 3,000 years.
Yeah, I actually had...
Do you want to hang out sometime next week?
I had the situation with
when you are next free.
A friend of mine, where it kept like minting to hang out, go on a walk, whatever. And basically I've been 2 years of sort of like, oh, do you, like, we should go for this time, so I'll see if I can work my schedule, like, whatever. And then we were just, met them on the street, basically. And they're saying, oh yeah, we're still going to hang out, right? And I said, yeah, what time works for you? And then, I'm not sure, I'll have to check some things. And like, all right, I'll get back to you on that then. And then, like, the next day, I asked them, I was like, yeah, okay, this day works. And then we just went with that.
And, yeah. Yeah, you if you're throwing desires out into the ocean, that's all they'll ever stay. Like, sorry, if you throw out vague things, they'll always stay vague.
Yeah.
And now, the reason you don't say, do you want to hang out next time you're free, is because then you're not giving the person an out. It's they're like, no.
They should be allowed to say no.
It's tricky, though. Yeah. Like, it's really hard. I'm not saying that they shouldn't be able to say no. What I'm saying is we do... what I was talking about, sacrifice and saying what you want, right? It's really hard to say no to some requests. And there's a part of human culture, this is especially prevalent in Japan, but there's a part of Western culture too, where people try not to put each other in difficult situations, right? Because you don't want to put the person in a situation where they have to say no, because essentially, at that point, you're not asking a question, it's a demand. But it's not, it's just... it becomes that in the minds of people, right? Because it's like, I can't say no to them, right? So that fear is the reason that this whole thing happened in the first place. That it would be nice to hang out sometime instead of saying, I want to date you.
Well, my counter to that, because I actually disagree with giving someone that out. So, if you two generally enjoy each other's company, and you're honest to each other and open with it, then you should go and do something with that person if they give the invitation, unless you have something else to do. And so they can give you the invitation. They don't even need to give you out. They can give you the invitation. And they should understand, no, I am doing something else at that time. Because that should be the only reason that you want to do something with them, if you're honest with each other and... Right,
but see what you're saying, they should want to do something with you, and that's not fair to make assumptions about their time. Because maybe they don't want to do something with it right now. People aren't the same people from day to day, or in the same context. So for me with my injury, right? If someone says to me, we should hang out, like, you want to hang out when you're next free? That's like, I don't know when I'm free. And even when I have the energy, it becomes so complicated, I guess, because wanting to do nothing, wanting to have time for yourself to do nothing, it's very hard to articulate. It's very hard to say, no, I don't want to hang out with you when I am next free because I want to spend that time just lying around in pain and being bored. It's like, well, that's not a good reason.
I think that's a perfectly fine reason. If it's something you want to do, they should understand that. I communicated that just this day when someone asked, they play a board game simulator online, and they do it on Sundays, and I communicated that I can't do it on Sundays because I have D&D with group friends. And said, okay, I'm considering moving that to Saturday, so you can join in. And I said, I use Saturday to myself so that I can just have it open to do nothing.
Right. But then there's this aspect of you yourself might not be sure that you always want to be free on Saturday.
Yeah, but I'm not going to have them move a date.
Yeah, well, in that case, that's more obvious. But it's like, when you're next free, we should hang out. And you say, well, I'm not sure. Because when I'm next free, I might not want to hang out. I might decide that I would rather just be doing my own thing. But maybe I do want to hang out. So it's very hard to cut yourself off from it, I guess, is because you're not sure how you'll be in that moment, in that point of time. And...
well, no, maybe it comes down to being honest with yourself and finally in there as well. Because I've found that my life has greatly benefited from saying, no, I'm doing something else that time, or, yeah, we can do it that day. And I just go with that initial thought of, does this generally feel, do I want to, do I not want to? I go with that. And getting rid of that flip-flop, cowardly backing yourself out, giving yourself a place to escape from.
well, see, if I did that, I would always have to say no every single time because I don't know how I'll be that day. I might be in agonizing pain. I might be on top of the world. I might be... my emotions as well. Like, I'm not a stable person. I could be completely unwilling to see anyone. I could be really wanting to see people. I could be incredibly tired. I could be incredibly awake. So I wouldn't say it's a cowardice thing. I would say it's literally, I don't know what person will be on that day.
Mm.
And it's very hard to, like, someone's driving by you in their car and they're like, hey, you want to hang out Saturday? And you're like, you've got 2 seconds to respond, and it's like, I don't know.
I think this comes down to that at this point, that Will, you can paint with broad strokes and try to capture the world in one shade. There's a myriad of people.
Oh, there's always a deeper and deeper thing, right?
And so there's not one definite approach. Because like we've talked about with martial arts, it's very much to your own standing of what stance you should take. Because maybe your knees are funny.
But I do think that there is... I've got...
well, maybe even answer... like, you don't have to give the person out. You can just ask them the question, right? Without giving them out. And they're allowed to answer, I don't know.
Yeah. Well...
because I don't like the thought of... like, you're saying there's a demand, but I feel like you should just be allowed to ask a question without having to butter the words. Or...
right, okay, how about... let me put it this way, and we'll see what you think, okay? Instead of saying, do you want to hang out when you're next free? Say to them, do you want to hang out this week?
Yeah.
What do you think of that? Or do you want to hang out next week? Or...
I mean, yeah, you can say, well, I hang out. That's fine. I'm fine with that, because then that gives them, okay, so this person basically saying, see, I see that as, do you want to hang out sometime this week? So they're communicating to you, they want to hang out, and they're saying that...
they're giving you a time frame.
Yeah, this is a time frame, my schedule basically will work within that, and we'll figure it out. So it's the start of a negotiation to what time, not even negotiation, but just figuring out a plan. You're starting out a plan, like, okay, what time works?
Yeah, so what I'm getting at, though, is should you always give a time frame rather than an open-ended... maybe the open-ended forever is as bad as saying sometime. Like, do you want to hang out when you're next free? Maybe that's as bad as saying, do you want to hang out sometime? Because I think it is in some ways, actually.
Yeah, no, I just don't like the open-end, like, sometime, whenever. Like, I feel like a time frame, like, you establish
right,
this...
but my problem was with the statement,
yeah,
do you want to hang out when you're next free?
Yeah.
Because that means that the person either has to say, no, I never want to see you again, or they have to say some really complicated, no, not when I'm next free, but maybe sometime after that.
Well, if you need to establish that clarity at some point.
What do you mean, sorry?
Well, someone asks you a muddy question.
Yeah.
Maybe you do have to give them a complex answer for it to make sense for both of you.
But you might not even know how to say it yourself. Like if someone says to you, hey, do you want to hang out sometime? And you reply, well, like, do you want to hang out when you're next free? And then what do you say to that? You say,
I'll hang out when I'm... well, here's the thing with that even, is, yes, I would like to hang out with you next time I'm free in the time frame that is free to hang out with you.
but that doesn't actually get either of you anywhere.
Exactly, so the question is...
so do you say to the person, just, that's a bad question.
Maybe.
Just like, give me a date.
Yeah.
And so this is where I'm getting...
Well, there's even a cultural joke of we should hang out sometime and then they never see each other again.
Well, that's why I'm saying you should be concrete, right?
Yes.
But we should hang out sometime is a different question from, do you want to hang out when you're next free? That's a different question.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's my problem is with the question, when you're next free.
Hang out when you're next free.
And I think that's where the societal impetus of you shouldn't put that sort of massive operation of thinking onto a person. I think that's a massive social imposition, and you shouldn't do it.
That shouldn't be done when you're next free. That shouldn't be done.
And I think that's what society already has this method of like, you don't just tell someone they have to plan the rest of their life around you, right? That's a massive social imposition.
Yes.
And so what you say to them essentially by society saying, so what people normally say in that situation is, oh yeah, sure, or and then nothing happens, right? Or they say, I don't know, maybe I'm like, and then they just sort of awkwardly escape, right? With the recognition that was a bad question to ask, and then so that fear, yeah, okay, here's what's going on. You are asking a person to plan out their entire life essentially by saying when you're next free, because it's like, how the hell am I supposed to know when I'm next free and willing to do stuff with you and able to do stuff with you and doing? You're asking a very computationally heavy question to me that you want me to answer with a yes or no. And the only you're not even asking a question, right? The answers are yes or I'm not your friend. That's not a real question.
Well, as I said, my answer next time you're free is I'll hang out with you the next time I'm free to hang out with you.
Yeah, but that's not an answer, right?
I think that's an answer.
That's getting nothing anywhere. And it's really annoying not being able to, because you're still not speaking clearly with your friend, and you should be able to speak exactly with your friend. You should be able to speak clearly. So I think what you really should say is that's a bad question.
Yes, you should say that's a bad question.
But
mine's the snide, clever remark that makes no sense.
Yeah, and you're basically...
It's just as a dishonest remark.
You're saying your time is contingent on me desiring to see you, which is true, I guess, but it seems almost down-putting. Maybe it's not.
I feel like it's... was it ask a stupid question, get a stupid answer?
You know. Okay, here's what it is. Here's the problem. This is what it is. Your answer is the same as when people say, "How you do? What's up?" and you say the sky. That's what your answer is. You're taking a question that you don't have a response for, so you're saying a witty answer, and it becomes like a rote ritual of horribleness. Because I don't know if I've talked to you about this, but when I sit down at dinner, when it's a family dinner with you and our mom and our stepdad and our stepsisters and stepsister's husband, boyfriend, and whatever else, right? I'd go mad because I know what everyone's going to say and I know how everyone's going to respond to it. And it drives me crazy because it's like I'm watching a movie for the 10,000th time on an airplane and I can't escape. Because it's like, I already know how this one goes. I've read this one before.
I don't think it always goes the same.
It's always the same. It's like, okay, someone says something, and then someone, like, so mom will say, I don't know, I read this horrible thing where people in the medieval ages, right, they used to, peel back your fingernails, right, and it was awful, right, and then you will come in, or me, because I do this too, with, well, if you think that's bad, you should think about splitting on the pair. You'll come up with another unrelated fact just to one-up them. And then it'll be like, oh, that's terrible. Now let's do a crazy tangent off of that. That's pointless. And then it'll be, and it's always the same thing. It's always this pattern of now. And then and the problem as well is it's not even an interesting fact. It's a fact that everyone already knows. It's just they all forgot it because nobody has a memory. It's like, you've told me this 6 times and I already knew it before you told me the first time.
See, herein lies the problem of you saying no one has a memory. Because I've found out there's this really nifty trick I can do with our dad because his memory is going a little bit, or he just doesn't listen fully the first time, is I can basically maintain a fog of small talk with him while maintaining like the same conversation we've had several times.
No, it's horrible. That's not what small talk should be used for at all. And it's I hate it. I really hate it. It's like everyone's hobbits. Just saying what they already know. And they're being reassured by the fact that they're all nothing's being created. Nothing of value was added. I could have stayed in my room and imagined what everyone said, and I'd probably learn more things.
Some people like being hobbits.
And it's like always, it's not just the facts, it's like the same jokes. And then it's like, Everything is said. It's like, has your sufficiency been sophoncified? Oh, yes. Any more would be superfluous. Every time. Like, it's all the in-jokes. It's every time.
You must be a real riot at parties.
Oh, I am, because we do interesting stuff at the parties I go to. We don't just repeat the same banal stuff over and over again. We engage, we explore new ideas, we talk about new information.
Have you ever thought that people are talking about new things, even if they're very similar to what they were?
No, they're not. It's just nobody has a memory. It's like, I'm surrounded by blathering goldfish morons. Oh. One of my closest friends, he's got like a eidetic memory and he's amazing. It's like, you remember that time we went to this place and he's like, yeah, and I was drinking this and doing that. It's like, thank you.
I think it's...
You beautiful man. What were we talking about?
No, I don't care what we were talking about. This here, because I remember what we talked about. Someone say no, I have to remember. But this here, of a hatred of what people find comforting.
Yes. Yeah, you can that's what borderline do, right? They find comfort in being slaves. You can, there are poor coping mechanisms in there. There is poor socializing methods. Now you can say, then why are you staying silent, Cameron? You should be screaming at them. Like, look, you know what this whole thing is, right? This is a veiled, cowardly attack at you, right? Because I am not directly saying, hey, Connor, we need to talk, right? The smallest possible thing. Can you just not tell me that fact about Samuel Clemens again or whatever? I doubt you know who that is, but Buzz Aldrin, maybe? Listening to strange sounds behind the moon? I don't know. I'm sure there's one out there. No, it was Phil Collins. But, no, that's the singer. Michael Collins. Anywho. What?
You're the one who told me that thing in the first place.
I know. That's why it makes me go even more mad.
But I don't tell it to you. I tell it to other people.
Yeah, but I'm around you. I don't want to hear it again. No, okay, here. What I'm saying is I should be saying that. I'm not saying that this is a thing you need to change. I'm coming up with an example on the spot that I am talking about.
And he is listening to like the universe or something.
I am, by complaining about family dinners behind people's back, I am being a coward instead of fixing the family dinner to my own satisfaction. That's what I'm getting at. If I have a problem with you or with mom or with our stepdad or with our stepsisters, I should talk to them and say, hey, can you not say that inside joke for the 10,000th time? Thank you. Please. My sanity's fraying.
I don't know what's wrong with the inside joke. I generally don't know what's wrong with that.
Like the whole call and response type inside joke where one person says something and then the other person replies with the inside joke. You don't find that horrifying?
No.
Do you skip cutscenes in video games? I think it's related.
Depends on if I care about them.
Because you already know what they're going to say, right? Like, if you're playing a game for the second time and you know what they're going to say, are you going to waste your life listening to that for a second time?
I mean, if it's a really good cutscene.
Like, if I'm sitting at dinner, right, and someone says a little chain effect thing, right, I can go, bing, you're going to do this. Then you're going to respond with this. And then that person's going to make a little snide remark about that. And then that person's going to say, oh, that snide remark reminds me. Did you know this? And then that person's going to say, interesting. That's going to spark this joke. And that's going to... And it's like, bing, bong, boom.
I think you're describing the basic essence of a family dinner.
No. Our family dinner. I've been to other family dinners.
So have I.
They're sane.
They've all been like that.
Then you need to get away from them. You need to get away from all of them. I think... You always bring a new story to the family dinner. You always say, bring a new fact. You always explore a new idea. You always talk about a new thing. That is how you do a family dinner. I feel... Okay. I have two major states of emotion, right? One is like I'm drowning. And one is like I am flying and free.
That's called bipolar.
No.
Yes it is.
No.
Yes, it is.
No, because this isn't brought about by mood changes. This is brought about by situations.
You'd be surprised how much your mood can change by the situations you're in.
Yes, but that's not bipolar. Bipolar is that you're on a manic episode for days and days and days, and everything's good no matter what. Right, so this is... When you're at a dinner party, right? Like a family dinner.
Yes.
Do you feel this comforting sameness of, I know how this is going to go, and this is how it is, and it's this endless, drowning, cloying, churn?
I don't feel
Or-
like drowning.
Do you go to a true happy party and you're scared and every word is a dagger aimed at your heart and you're deflecting and you're dodging and you're flying and you're laughing, you're shouting at the heavens and the lightning bolts don't dare strike you and you feel free?
You see, because I'm...
Not fivefold.
Because I have the majority of my meals by myself and I have no interaction with other people to a large extent of my time, and I spend a ridiculous amount of time, more than probably healthy, speaking to myself, I do find it nice to be in a situation where things are just going to be like wrapping up in a warm blanket in front of a fire.
Okay, so both of the situations I described are social situations, right?
Yeah.
So you can say, I am lonely and I like company, and that's totally fair, right? But which company would you rather have?
Well, I get stressed out a lot by being around other people.
Where's our younger stepsister? I need to be asking her about this. I have to talk to an extrovert. Because that's the problem. Our whole family's introverts.
Exactly.
Except for her.
Exactly.
I need to talk to her. Maybe that's my problem.
Hobbits are introverts. And an extrovert would go insane by listening to a group of introverts talk.
Maybe that's my problem.
See, that's why I wanted to get to the bottom of this. Because there's probably something more to it.
So you don't like the whole, like, fencing with words and, like, daggers and lightning bolts and...
I mean, it's enjoyable, but I don't want to do it every day.
Yeah, but...
I want to be in the Shire, then I want to go out, fight a few dragons, and head back to the Shire.
It's the predictability that really gets to me, I think.
Predictability is why it's nice. Well, if you want, next time I'll have like a clown nose ready or something. I'll hit you with a fish.
Yeah. I have trouble thinking about this rationally or logically or whatever, because I start getting like, I feel like I'm drowning just thinking about, like, I feel like these horrible flashbacks.
I'll write a script, and for like the next 5 family meals, I'll say the exact same words. Just to gaslight you.
No, you should do that, right? And what you should do is pay attention to how everyone responds, and you'll notice that none of them will call you out on it, and they will react the exact same way every time.
Well, that's because there will be an interim in between me showing up.
Yeah, but they won't remember.
I know, I do.
It's like you're trapped in a horrible time loop, and you're the only one that knows. It's like, help, I'm trapped. Let me out. Oh, that would be hellish, eh? Like, you'd start immediately, like, having to, like, randomly slap people just to keep your life from going mad.
If you're Groundhog Day?
Yeah. Like, you'd have to break stuff constantly. And what if it turned out... Okay, 2 situations, right? You're stuck in Groundhog Day loop.
Yeah.
And it turns out that every single day is totally different, right? Like, you wake up, it's the same day every day. Mm-hmm. But from the moment you get out of bed and, like, the first person you see, or you don't see, it's like a totally different day every time. Or, the second scenario, no matter what you do, you, like, shoot the president and you crash a car into a children full of orphanages and you, like, light the school bus on fire and everything stays the same. And I'm not saying that, like, there's some weird ontological inertia, either changing everything constantly or keeping it the same. I'm saying that's actually, you discover this is a fundamental nature of reality, that either the tiniest change completely alters the world, or you find that no matter what you do, nothing changes. Which one would drive you more, like, existentially broken or insane?
I think both would break you a lot, existentially.
You're just like, I can't... Like, the first time I don't know, you were there. I don't know if you remember this. Because you don't remember anything! No,
I have a fairly good memory compared to a lot of people, I find.
So, the first time I played Minecraft, I started panicking. I don't know if you remember this, because I had been playing for like an hour. I was playing the classic demo, right? I'd been playing for like an hour. I'd built a little house, and I'd cut down a bunch of trees, and I was going around. And I climbed up a hill, and I couldn't see anything. Like, I couldn't see my impact on the world in the slightest. The house was... I couldn't see the house. I couldn't see any of the trees that were missing.
Right, here's why I don't remember this at all. It's because it was my turn.
You're just a lovely guy.
Yes. So I don't remember your panic at all.
But I was just like, I can't. I no matter what I do, there's an amazing Saturday morning breakfast cereal which captures this idea, which is that when nerds realize that there is no heaven and that they are mortal and they will die, they're like, either I have to invent heaven or I have to kill everyone. It's like, I need to scar something. I can't be meaningless. I need to scar the universe. It's like I just couldn't leave a scar on the landscape, and it drove me crazy. It was horrifying, and it's a really weird feeling. It's like you could make a horror movie about someone that like every time they like take a plate and put it on the table, it's like back in the drawer, and
So you say you're OCD, right?
no, I said I have tendencies towards it, but this is unrelated. Like imagine if. Like you're on the beach, right? And there's sand, and you draw your finger through the sand, and it just like it just moves back into position behind you, and you like build like a house of cards, right? And then it like just settles back into a deck and goes back in the box, and like you would go so crazy. You'd start like shooting people just to feel something. You'd start stabbing yourself in the throat, just like I need to feel
All right,
something.
Let me tell you about a dream I had last night.
Like that's depression personified in the real world. Nothing matters.
Let me tell you about a nightmare / dream I had last night.
That's why depressed people fantasize about disasters.
Because you're sort of expressing your nightmare with the plate thing. And so we'll see what this, because we get insight into your psyche from that. So, remember that song I played earlier? And I was saying that thing, and I wanted to tell you about the comment on that video with Yorkshire Farmer.
Yeah.
So nightmare last night is... These were two of the things I was planning to tell you, because I think we're fairly close to conversation. We like talking to each other. And so these are two big things I really wanted to tell you about. And so my nightmare, I was trying to remember the thing about bottlenose and Yorkshire Farmer, and I couldn't. And I was trying to find the video with that song, and I kept finding the wrong video and the wrong song. And I was looking for both these things, and
I was getting impatient or something?
Yes, you were getting impatient. Because I couldn't find them. And also I had to go to the bathroom at the same time. So it was getting worse and worse because I had to go to the bathroom. I was trying to find them because if I went to the bathroom, you'd lose complete interest and then I would have to leave the house. And...
You know what's funny? Is I think that doesn't tend to happen in real life.
No.
But that's something I do to you, I think. Like I will say, I want to show you something. And then I'll like spend an hour reading the Communist Manifesto instead of telling you about it. So it's like, it's almost reversed from real life.
Yeah.
You're remarkably patient about that, but it's almost like I'm the narcissist and you're the borderline trying to appease me. You should look out for that. Like, if you ever think I am, you should run away. Like, actually.
Yeah.
You gotta keep an eye out for that stuff. Because the problem with the whole cluster bees is you're blind to it yourself.
Yeah. Well, no, it's interesting. So, you going to high school was a fairly big change for me, actually, because different school than you, even though we barely saw each other in elementary school, to be honest.
Yeah, I saw you a bit too much, really.
Yeah, you saw me a bit too much. I barely saw you.
Yeah. Both things can be true.
Yep.
It's hard to be cool with your little brother coming up and hugging you all the time.
Especially when he's adorable to me.
Yeah.
But slight change. I mean, even you going off to school, but we had daycare, so that sort of balanced it all out. Then you going on the ES trip? No, the CS trip. The first year. Your grade 9 year.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So you went on a week-long trip. And... No, before that it was bison hunt. That was it.
Okay.
So you went on bison hunt, you came back, and Musashi passed away that day.
Yeah.
But you'd been gone for like 2 weeks, a week?
Yeah, I think it's just a week.
Yeah, a week, and that was like the longest we'd ever been apart in my memory.
Well, I also went to the summer camp in grade 5.
Yeah, but you came back every day.
And you went on a trip with our mom once for like a month, I think, without me.
I don't remember it.
Yeah, you were pretty young.
Yeah. But anyway, so bison camp was the first one, so you're gone for about a week.
Yeah.
I
think you went to a birthday. No, you went with our dad to our great-grandmother's birthday without me.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was like 90-something.
Yeah. I was like probably 3.
Yeah.
I wasn't real.
Because you don't have a memory. I remember when I was...
Anyways, but yeah, so you went off for a week trip, and that was pretty big for me.
Slipsism isn't narcissism. It's just paying attention.
And then you went to the grade 9 trip, and that, I think, was also a week. Might be 2, but anyways, that impact. And then you weren't there for Thanksgiving. That was ES.
Yeah. Yes.
And that really messed me up.
Yeah, good. I've been thinking about that. Like, for years, I didn't like that I went and did ES, right?
Mm-hmm.
But looking back, I'm like, holy cow, I'm glad I did that.
No, it was a very good thing. So, our dad even mentioned at the time, I recall this, our dad mentioned at the time that it was a good thing you were away from me for so long. And I remember you feeling resentful about that.
Yeah, I mean, really? I don't know. There are things maybe you don't say. Like, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, things can be true and it doesn't mean that saying them makes them good or better.
Yep.
There are statements that even by saying they make them untrue.
Yes.
Like, it is quiet in here, isn't it?
Shut up.
No, but that's the same kind of statement. Like, it's a good thing you did this. It's like...
Well, there's even a question, are you awake?
Yeah.
Like, that is the most worthless question in the world.
So, one thing that was always done around with our mom and stepdad was, you'll apologize to us when you're older type of thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, that might have been true if you hadn't said that all the time.
I still see no reason to apologize.
Yeah, but maybe that could have had some place if they hadn't said it all the time. And maybe if, you
and
know...
also my pride demands that if there ever is a case where I have to apologize, I will.
Well, so our I need to talk to our stepsister, our younger one, about this as well, because... So, what are you... Okay, there's this concept, right, of airing out your family's dirty laundry, right?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that concept? Like, should I not say what I'm about to say? I've normally found in my life that when I think I shouldn't say something and then I say it, I really shouldn't have said it. This is a bit different, though, because I don't really feel like I shouldn't say it. It's just more of a, I have decided to give the other side a chance if you want to express it. Because if you don't air out your dirty laundry, it stays dirty, is my thought. But maybe you shouldn't be telling the whole world about it. Like, maybe it's not, maybe you should talk to it. Maybe I should talk to you about it, but not on a podcast. Let's put it that way. What are your thoughts on that concept? Like, how much of your life is private? How much, like, I say a lot of stuff about...
Well, if it's on your mind right now and you want to talk about it, then talk about it and I can delete it.
Yeah, but like, what are your thoughts in general? Like, I say a lot of stuff about our parents, right? And it's kind of like, I don't know. You know?
Well, in the case for me, everything...
I mean, hey, you did the thing. If you hadn't said that, I wouldn't be talking about it. If you hadn't done that, I wouldn't be talking.
For the case for me, everything that I say on here about people or about someone, including our parents, I also say to them.
Yeah.
Or will say to them if it comes up.
Yeah, I don't know if I will. That's a good point. Because, yeah, you don't want to talk... Because, yeah, if you say something, but you would say it to them if it came up, then you're not talking behind their back. You're just talking about someone else about the idea. Or you're trying to figure out that idea, right?
Yeah.
But when you talk to, like, a therapist, you might be getting stuff off your chest that you need to figure out and work out, right? And so that could be talking behind their back, except in that case, you're actually trying to figure out what the proper response and thing is in that situation, right? Which is to say, now typically therapy sessions aren't broadcasted. I mean, arguably. Maybe they all are. Like, people write books and make movies. But,
I mean, hasn't this whole podcast been, what is it now, a 200, 300 hour long therapy broadcast?
Absolutely. That's why this is for me. Like, I mean, you have to do all this editing work, and maybe some people have to listen to it, but like, screw you guys. Like, this is for me.
You say all this editing work.
Yeah, I'm sure it's all great.
Yes, that make you sound so intelligent.
Yes, good. That rant was very classic, wasn't it? We haven't done that in like years.
Self-awareness?
No. I mean, me just being angry at a concept like a family dinner. So, should I stop talking about our parents? I don't know. Like, that seems it's a very important part of my life.
I think you should talk about what's important.
Yeah.
And by nature of what we do...
You know, they did the stuff, though, right? Like, if I put it that way, is that fair? Or is that just me looking for a note? They did the thing. It's on them that they did it. And I'm talking about it now. Like, okay, here's the other thing to keep in mind, right? There's a huge caveat with all of this, which is they all have tons of redeeming qualities. I'm just talking about one incidence of a thing that I didn't like. And just because they did something a year ago or 10 years ago or 20 years ago does not mean that they are that person now. Everyone changes and gets better over time.
Yeah.
So this is not me saying grab your pitchforks and lynch them. This is me saying this happened and I want to talk about a broader conversation about this event, and this doesn't reflect on those people now.
Sorry, I just had a thought that made me smile, which is a lot of cases when people's formative things, like they need to talk about their parents, they actually do,
Yeah.
just to get through it and over with it. And in some cases, people do broadcast that in a podcast form.
Yeah.
But they do that when their parents are dead because their parents can no longer defend themselves.
Yeah. So they're the cowards.
Well, it's more of the fact of the matter of, the broadcasting when they're dead. It's like, haha, now I'm...
Well, it's more that you don't want to hurt people's feelings.
Yeah.
I think that you... Like, as long as you're not actually calling... Like, as long as you're saying, look, I don't want you to go and harass this person.
Yeah.
And I have my own relationship with them you know nothing about.
Yeah.
So you can't make any assumptions here. This is a story that I'm using to illustrate a larger point. Right, so I have a friend, right? He loves his dad. And he talked to me once about something, a behavior his dad has, right? And he really doesn't like. And it's a pretty nasty behavior. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, it's really bad behavior for the family and the kids, but it's not something you can dislike him for. Like you know, let's say like a war veteran that yells at his kids because he gets scared because they were like playing loud music. You're like, that's not good, but it's like you can't really blame the war veteran at the same time, right? That sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it's along those lines of like his dad's got his own struggles and he does a thing and it's not great, but it's not like he's like you know he's not raping his children or something. Nothing even close. And this is one behavior of a very complex person because everyone's very complex, right? And so my friend was telling me about this thing and he started the conversation with, I love my dad to pieces, don't say anything bad about my dad, like I'll fight you for him, sort of thing, but I need to talk about this.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like my mindset here, I think, right? It's like just because I'm saying one thing doesn't mean that there isn't a million other things that I'm not talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so the story.
Do tell.
Well, this is in relation to how our dad said, that'll be good for you. Mm-hmm. It's like, told you so points don't help anyone.
No.
And I'm not even saying that that's what he's doing it for, but that's what everyone does. Everyone wants to do the told you so. Like, no one can help themselves. It just slips out.
See, my thought on told you so's is you gather a whole bunch of them, and if all of them come to be true, you then use those to say, I'm no longer associating with you.
Well,
I don't think told you so should be done unless you're gathering them basically to say, this is evidence stacked up against you. Good day.
No, I think told you so. I think the way you use told you so's is what I did with our mom, where I was talking about the origins of wokeness progressivism. And I said, because it's an ideology, if you want to believe anything I say, I should be able to predict what they'll do next. And so I said, I predict that in the future, they will start saying, freedom of speech doesn't mean freedom of consequences. So that's what I said to our mom. And that is a told you so, where if they start saying that regularly, then I can say, okay, see, look, I know what I'm talking about. Now, the problem is I chose basically the craziest, most progressive, far left talking point I could think of, right?
Really? Was that the one you chose?
Yeah, that's what I said, was free speech. Okay, now here's it. I didn't make that up. People are super far leftists already saying that, right?
Yeah.
Progressive leftists already saying that. So that's what I did, because that's all you have to do, right? You have to say, okay, what are the wackos on the fringes of the internet saying? Yeah. That'll become mainstream in 5 years. So I was like, okay, I'll pick that one that they're using.
Yeah.
Because that's basically the most insane thing I can think of, right? It's stupid. It's stupid on so many levels. It's like, well, murder isn't legal. It's just, murder is legal. It's just there's also consequences. Like, no, that's not what that means.
Yeah.
You've completely defeated the purpose of law. That's not how that works. So I told her that. And the thing that scared me was she said, well, aren't people already saying that?
Yeah.
And I was like, where do I go? It's kind of like the problem the Onion and the Babylon Bee have. It's like, how do you
Yeah.
parody anything?
Even Freedom Tunes.
Yeah. Well, did you see there was the early trailers for the new Saints Row? Like, it's out now, but the early trailers for the new Saints Row were so unbelievably bad that people thought that the game was making fun of progressives.
Yeah.
Because it was like, this person is an art student that wants to become an art curator. But unfortunately, their college isn't going so well. So they have a gang where they kill people on the side. And this guy, he's a really nice guy. You know, he's depressed and he listens to a lot of self-help books on audio. And people are like, oh, okay, so they're making fun of progressives, and then the actual main character will come in and like it'll be. And no, they were being serious. It's like, how do you predict insanity when the insanity is mainstream? Like, it's like, if it's crazy because everyone says like, oh, you know, Trump was the, like, Sitch from Sitch and Adams show. He talks about this where he says, like, he voted against Trump. He really doesn't like Trump because Trump made everything woke, and he doesn't want Trump to get in again because then everything will go woker and crazier. It's like, no. If you were paying attention before Trump got in, this stuff was happening for a long time.
Yes.
And what Trump did was Trump was the first tiny incremental pushback, and that didn't make everyone lose their minds. It just made them crawl out into the light.
Yeah, and try to kill him, basically.
But forget that. It's just you turn. It's like, I'd rather live in the kitchen with the lights off than turn them on and see all the cockroaches scattered.
Yes.
It's like, no, Sitch. This was a problem that Trump did not create in the slightest, and he didn't even exacerbate it. It's
No, see, so even worse than the cockroaches scattering, they start picking up toothpicks and pointing them at you, saying, "Turn off the light."
yeah. You didn't see nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Or, it's good when the light is off. You like it when it's off.
So yeah, I'm not sure what to tell our mom to prove my point now, because it's like,
There will be transracialism. They will start looking for
like, those are. Here's the thing, right? I think you're right.
what was the other one? Maps.
Yeah. Oh well, I considered it, but that seemed like
I really hope that's too far out of the pale.
that seems too far. But I'm not. You know, maybe that is a good one. But here's the thing: if I predict it and it's wrong, then I lose my position of being able to predict, right?
Yeah.
But if I don't predict it and it happens, then I can't put people on alert about it, so they reckon because I have a memory.
Yeah.
Unlike all these goldfish on this earth of goldfish, people say things 5 years apart. Like, the same person
Yeah.
says things 5 years apart. 5 years ago, they're like, this is crazy and stupid and will never happen. And then 5 years from then, they're like, wow, I can't believe anyone would be against this. What bigots. Like, the same people.
Yeah.
I've seen this again and again and again.
Yeah.
And
That's basically my whole friend group from high school.
even my close friends will say, like, they'll still make all the same jokes, but they'll start them all with, you can't say this anymore. And it's, so my friends at least are like resistant, but they're still like, they still are aware that the culture has enforced this like scary, like, oh, you'll get in trouble if you say this on them. We can only say this with your friends. Our mom said something very revealing to me, which was, so our stepdad was telling a story, right, about a guy he met downtown.
Yeah.
And the guy was looking at, they were looking at like a car that they were trying to fix together.
Yeah.
Our stepdad and this guy. And they were out in some parking lot in public or something. And the guy's like, look, I'm not gay or anything, but that is a really nice looking car. And
Sorry. What does cars have to do with being gay?
well, sorry, he said like, that's a really nice color on that car or something like that. Because, you know, having opinions on colors and stuff, that's pretty gay.
Is it?
No, but you know, it's like that sort of, well, that's the thing, like, people my age do that, say that sort of thing all the time as a joke. And he might have been serious at like an older, like 50s sort of age, right? But even then, he's saying like, look, I don't want to sound like I'm too sentimental and like touchy homosexual, but like, I like some colors. There are some colors I find pretty.
Yeah.
No homo though. But so he said that. And then,
So I was gonna say this other guy, but we've all said no homos.
yeah, well, that's fine. Women can't hurt you anymore. See? That's one of those inside joke things that you know.
didn't even know that was an inside joke. I just thought it's funny.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's not. Okay, anyways, our stepdad was telling us this story about this guy downtown. What?
Goldfish memory.
No, I was stopping myself from saying a bunch of stuff.
Okay.
I wasn't trying to remember anything. I had to pause to bite my tongue.
Okay. Carry on.
I was gonna... No. I'm just holding back a lot, okay?
All right.
I'm holding back a lot of self-loathing. So he told us this story, and our mom was like, "Oh, that's horrible! Like, I can't believe someone would say that." And she's saying, "But you know, it is funny how like all the best fashion designers are gay." And I was saying, "Yeah, well, this guy could have been saying, you know, I'm not gay. Like, I'm no. It's like a wine. It's like I'm no wine connoisseur, but that was a really nice wine. Like, I'm not gay, but that's a nice looking car, that sort of thing." And she's like, "Yeah, that's funny." And yeah, but it's interesting how like gays tend to be like all the higher echelons of fashion and whatnot, and this and that. Like gay men specifically.
Yeah.
I said to her, "You're saying the exact same thing that guy did in a different way." And she's like, "Well, yeah, but not in public." Yeah. That's interesting. So I don't think anyone believes it. Like you're saying your friends all fall for this. I think they're in a group and they're just like...
I hope so.
Yeah. Well, some of them might be like poisoned by Reddit or something, but...
Yeah.
But I think a lot of times people are just... They think that the culture is in one place. The Overton window does not reflect society.
Yes, that's a fair enough point, especially if you're...
Yeah. And so you'll see all these people that are like, well, you can't say this anymore. And it's really interesting as well. Yeah, I'll get into that. But
You can't... Oh, God. So you know the word that we had to clap out last time, right at the end?
yeah.
A bundle of sticks.
Yeah. Did you succeed?
Well, I haven't edited that yet.
Okay. Oh, right. We're way ahead.
But luckily, it's going to be really stuck in my memory because there...
I forgot about it. Good thing I'm not editing.
Yeah. So, on... my friends are playing in an online video game tournament. And one of the teams had a guy who used that word. Mm-hmm. And it came out much later, but someone basically complained about with him. And then on their forum, he basically said, "Look, I was just saying this to my team. I was calling the other players that, sort of get them like riled up." It's like, "No, you can't use this anymore." And like people started jumping down his throat. Like, "You can't use the word." And then he's saying, "Look, I will use what words I want when talking to people. Like, you can moderate me here on like this typing thing. When I'm talking with my team, I'll use what words unless they come to me personally and say, 'Hey, could you not use that word?' And then I'll say, 'Okay, I won't use that word.'" And someone else defended him as well. And then everyone else was just rabidly attacking them. And then after the rabid attacking, they said, "Oh, I was just doing this because I really like drama, or I wanted to see the argument, or whatever." And I was just going, "You dishonest, like..."
You know what's really annoying?
But anyways, that whole thing prompted me to research the word. And
Was I right?
Kind of, but you're right, but for the wrong reason. So, the word is only offensive in America.
Yeah. Well, it's a type of food and cigarettes in the UK.
And in Canada, because we are, despite all we try, we've been culturally conquered by America. Yeah. But, so why you're right is, the word with ing added to it.
Yeah.
Is the name of a British schoolboy game, along with the other ones like the Cracker Game and all that.
Right.
Because the British schoolboy games are...
Where you're like, what, sucking on a cigarette?
No, you're standing in a circle, and the first one, yeah.
I don't know what you mean, but I don't know if I want to know.
You're standing in a circle with your pants down,
okay,
and your hands by your groins.
Like facing in or out?
In.
Is there someone in the center of the circle?
Nope.
Okay, so and then you're what, like slapping each other?
No. You're doing a circular activity to yourself all at the same time, and the first person to lose has to pay a consequence.
I'm still not sure what you mean, but now I don't want to know for sure. But are we? You know, like if you learned that, like you learned that your ancestor was like the greatest slave owner ever or something, and you'd feel kind of bad, even though it's not really your fault. It's like, we've got British ancestry, and I don't know.
Well, so the other terms for it.
What's wrong with that continent?
So
Country. Island.
Old women. This actually comes from all over Europe.
So were the F people the ones that lost or won?
Lost.
Okay.
Um,
What's it have to do with the? Is it to do with the meatball or to do with the cigarette?
it's to do with a bundle of sticks.
Oh, so I was right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
by saying you're right, but it's the
Right.
British sense, but the British aren't offended by it.
Yeah.
So the other way, though, for the word, which is annoying.
No, but remember I said, don't you need more than 2 men to get a bundle?
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah. So I was right. Wow.
But so the other term comes from old women. Were often one of the jobs that they'd have a spinster.
How would they play?
Okay, just a spinster.
So you've got some old women and some young boys standing in a circle.
No. Just a spinster. So someone who's no longer married, so a widow or a spinster.
Someone should report those women.
Who's old would have a job of gathering bundles of sticks because there's like work she could do, and so she'd be bent over, and so they were called F-word-ers.
Right.
And so then
so that is someone that's always bent over.
Yeah. But also it's an old woman. It's basically a way to call someone an old woman. It's call them that. So that's like 1800s, 1700s, sort of that time frame. And then that gets brought over to America. This is the one that they think is the most likely is the old woman.
Yeah.
And so someone's being flamboyant.
Yeah.
And to call them a bit of a poof, you call them that word, and then a negative connotation builds up around it, basically.
So...
But you're basically calling someone an old woman if they're gay.
Right. Okay. Huh.
So that's what people think, like etymologists think is
so
the
those
most
are the
likely.
theories.
Yeah.
I think
the other one with the cigarettes is it's something you discard as a throwaway. And so that's another thought.
So... What you pointed out about people jumping on the person for saying the word, it reminded me of a phenomenon my best friend pointed out, which is that the kind of people who are the ones that are going to be jumping down your throat, as you said, the most about this sort of thing, and be the most upset. Like you said, you don't like swears, right?
Yeah.
These are the same people that are the ones who were saying all the offensive stuff to stick it to the Christians and whatnot. Like the people that normalize hell and damn and God rot and all that sort of thing. It's the same people, and it's the same people that were even using these exact words like 10 years ago. Like you look at the Yogscast, they got their whole brand as being offensive. That's how they that was their thing. That's how they got to number like 12th most subscribed channel on YouTube.
Yes.
They were the offensive Brits with the amazing like mod packs and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And very funny people.
Yeah, very witty.
Yeah.
Very quick.
And brilliant, like
you can't,
funny Warcraft players.
Yeah, you can't be brilliant and quick though when you're trying to censor yourself.
Yeah. Well, this conversation about the F word has been
It's been brutal.
It's been really annoying.
And it's partly because I don't feel like bleeping because that's a nightmare. I hate doing that. It's so annoying to bleep.
Right. So it's the exact same people that were using these terms when everyone else wasn't that are going to now jump down the throats of people for using them. Yeah. It's the same people that were like I noticed when I was this is kind of true about everything. It's really annoying. So I used to be very romantic. So when I was like what?
I'm just, I don't know, for some reason I was thinking, oh, I want to reach out and pat this out of your face.
So when I was like 4 years old, I wrote a poem for this girl.
Oh, now you're saying you're 4, and I feel kind of bad about that.
What?
A romantic 4-year-old is just adorable, but not in a condescending adorable way.
Yeah, no, this is what I mean. Yeah. This was stamped out of me by the time I was 6. So I wrote this poem, which was roses are red, violets are blue, honey is sweet, and so are you. And
did your friends get a hold of that?
Yes. Well, because I gave it to her for her birthday, and she read it out.
Ooh.
And everyone made fun of me for it.
And that is why men are men.
and I used to do this sort of thing all the time, right? I would like write these poems and this sort of thing. And people would always be like, ooh, girls have cooties. I'm like, no, they don't. I want to play with them. And so I would play with this girl and I'd play with other girls. And
so you're saying you're a bit of a poof yourself?
No, I was a player. No, they were just my friends, right? But I didn't mind being around girls, and I liked playing with them, and I liked writing them the sweet poetry and that sort of thing. And I got made fun of it all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I get to like 14, 15, 16, and everyone's like dating, and they're like, "Why aren't you dating? What's wrong with you? Why aren't you dating?" It's like, come on, I can't do one, I can't do the other.
No, so when they asked you why aren't you dating,
Yeah.
you should have just gone, lads, like punched them in the shoulder. Oh, he's dating people. This thing's big shot going in there, eh? Oh.
I don't know what that means. I'm not British enough, but no.
I think I've actually been unfortunately affected. Like people, what is your accent? Because I like speak on video.
Yeah.
And it's like, are you British? Like, no, I'm Canadian. I've just consumed too much British culture.
So it's like you're romantic and they make fun of you, and then you're not a romantic and they make fun of you. You swear and they make fun of you. You don't want to swear and they make fun of you, and then you swear and they make fun of you. And the phenomenon my friend pointed out was that Pink Shirt Day, which is this anti-bullying campaign, right?
Yeah.
The only people that wear the pink shirts are the bullies, because everyone else doesn't want to get picked on, and the bullies get to be hypocrites for a day. They get to get that sweet virtue signaling in. And now with the romantic thing, I think you could have the argument that things are not always okay in all contexts. There's a time and place for everything.
Yeah.
And I got the time and place wrong. I don't think I did. These poems were not like, I guess I said they were romantic, but they were more just like, that was the poem that, you know, our mom gave me when I was young, and I gave her for her birthday. Like, it was just the standard roses are red, violets are blue. That's what you give to everyone for their birthday, right? And
Yeah.
and everyone thought I had a crush on this girl for years and years and years, and they probably still do.
And she just sometimes wakes up in the night and goes, wait, did he like me?
But I don't know if... The thing is, people ask me all the time, like, did you have a crush on her? And I say, I don't know. I'm like, I don't know. Back then, I mean. Now it's like, well, obviously. I mean, she's a great singer. I've said before, singing is the second most attractive thing a person can do. So...
I mean, well, it's weird because it's like, at least I was going, yeah, I'll just say, and I'll say why it's weird. Which is, at least you weren't called gay for your best friend. I mean, I don't know if you were. But...
I mean, I was, yeah.
Okay, but it's like it's just your mate. You hang out with him a whole bunch.
Yeah.
And so like Rodney, he's been on here, and like when we were in grade, I think basically from grade 5 to 7.
Yeah.
People would make a joke about us being gay. And because we're both clever but stupid, we would respond, yes, we're happy.
So very happy together. Wait a minute. This isn't working.
That's why I said clever but stupid. But...
Yeah, see, the real intellectual would say, no, you are.
But why I hesitated there, even the thought is, well, but the socially zeitgeist thing is like, oh, is it even bad to be called gay? It's like, well, yes, it is in this case because he's my friend. I actually have no romantic attraction to him. And that's kind of perverse.
Yeah, and even...
Seeing friendship as a romantic attraction.
Yeah, and even if one or both of you was gay, you're denigrating the friendship to say that that's the only reason people can be together. You're denigrating the entire concept of friendship.
Yeah. Something Eros
has never had a friend.
Yes.
Yeah. C.S. Lewis.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something never had a friend. C.S. Lewis.
Something Eros never had a friend. C.S. Lewis.
Yeah. 1915 or something. So the story where we were talking about how our dad said to you, like, this will be good for you.
Yeah.
Which is true in some ways, I think. And in a lot of ways, but yeah. Is our mom found drugs in our stepsister's room.
Yeah.
First of all, going through your kid's stuff is a little bit dodgy, I think.
Yes. Actually, one of my favorite things on that was it was someone talking about their experience as a kid. And he's like, I knew my mother had gone through my stuff before, and so he went to a sex store and he's like got his older friend to buy a whole bunch of stuff. They put it in his room, and then he told his mom basically like, "Look, I know you're going to search my room, but it's your fault for finding anything in there."
Well, what you actually do, right, is you get like this is the problem that our stepsister, she didn't think this through, right?
Yeah.
You get a bunch of porn magazines and you stick them in a box, and the bottom of the box you stick your drugs. So the way to hide something, the way to hide a secret is to hide it behind an even more embarrassing secret.
Well, in Artemis Fowl, he had the safe, and so he pulled the picture back, and there was the safe behind it. But the actual safe was in the picture frame.
Yeah, but you want people to think they've got your treasure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so you actually have to put money in the safe behind the picture.
Yeah, there was money in the safe.
But the valuable, the stuff you really care about. Yeah. So it's the same thing. So yeah, she should have put the drugs under the like porn magazines or something.
Yeah.
Or like, yeah, whatever. And they got in a big fight.
Yeah.
And so our stepsister decided to leave. And so she just basically stomped out of the house and never came back, I think. But as she was leaving, our mom said to her, "What are you going to do? Just leave? How immature?" Something like that. And it's like, if you said that to me, I'd never come back. It's like, maybe I was on the fence when I was stomping out the door angry.
Yeah.
You say that to me and it's like, screw you, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things where it's like, oh, sure, maybe it's immature to just stomp out and leave because you got caught doing something you shouldn't. But you have to give people an out. You have to give people grace. Like, you have to give someone like all right, get back here right now. Like, you can maybe say that, maybe. Depends on how you do it. But, like, what are you going to do? Just leave? It's like, well, screw you. Yeah, I will. What are you going to... Like, that is the worst possible thing you can say, basically. Other than, look at this weak stuff you got here. Here, let me show you some real marijuana. Come on, haven't you tried heroin?
Was it marijuana?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh.
But it's like marijuana. God, that's weak. Come on, let me get you some heroin. I'll show you real drugs. Let me get you some testosterone. That'll mess your life up.
That's taking the oh, I smoke a pack of cigarettes. The Billy. That Cyanide and Happiness.
Which one?
So the boys are down in the basement having Billy's birthday party.
Yeah.
And they have some cigarettes and alcohol they snuck in. They suck in a few. Then Billy's dad comes up. "Billy, what's this? Are you smoking and drinking alcohol?" "Well, real men drink all the alcohol." And it's like they have some beer. He like brings down real, and they smoke the whole pack. And they swear. He says like a bunch of words. And then the scene cuts. And Billy's dad and Billy are like lying beanbags with his friends, and they're like smoking, drinking. Like, yeah, see, that's what real men, and real men go drink and dance. I love you, Dad.
Yeah. So it's. I just want to talk to her about that. Like, how on earth did you ever get over that? Because they seem to have a good relationship now, and it's like maybe she's less spiteful than me and vengeful, but I think most people are. But it's like. You can either be the all-wise parent or you can be a hypocrite, like a literal hypocrite, and say how wise you are and all the reasons you're wise. It's like in Archie comics, when Archie and Reggie leave home because they hate living at home, Archie's dad is a good dad, and he doesn't say like, "Oh, you'll regret leaving." He doesn't say, "Get back here right now." He doesn't beg them to get back. He says, "All right, boys, you have a good time." And then his wife's panicking. She's like, "What? You can't just let them go? They're only 17." He's like, "No, I'll just let them go." And then he just waits. And like 2 weeks later, they come back and they're like, "We're sorry, Dad. We're sorry." And like he was a perfect example of a dad in that comic.
Yeah,
like a good dad, because he didn't go, "Oh, they'll be begging." He didn't say to them, "You'll be begging to come back in a week." He's like, "No, you go. You boys go and have fun." And then when they came back, he didn't say, "Yep, see, I knew you'd come back." He was just like, "I'm glad to have you home." Like, that's that. Like, he was wise, and he didn't have to state his wisdom to show it to his stupid kid. Like, what are you even winning? Like, if you get a one up with an equal, that's one thing, right? But it's like, oh yeah, I'll get one over my kid I have total control over.
Yeah, so I actually have a question for you about your tolerance levels for certain things. Because you have this righteous fury. How do you not go insane when you do your rereading Harry Potter?
Because there's always something new.
But I actually, like, I listen to it while driving, and I scream out what Harry's righteous response should be to Snape while driving.
Oh, I see what you mean. Right. Okay. Sorry, I thought you were talking about how do I not get sick of reading the same thing over and over
No,
again.
not that. How do you, like, Umbridge was bad, but Snape's actually worse, I think. Like,
So,
it's, oh my god, because Snape is such a petty child who never grew up. Like, if Snape actually, like, he has this hatred for James Potter, and he was creepy stalker infatuated with Lily, right? If he actually wanted to get back at James, I was thinking about this in a really twisted way, more than just like, oh, he looks like James, so I'm going to bully him because he looks like James. He should have made Harry like him. Like, day one, make Harry like him as much as possible. And know how when he showed Harry that memory in the pensive,
yeah.
and Harry was uncertain if his father was a good person, Snape should have, like, constantly fed memories like that of James being absolutely awful to him, and he should have, like, made Harry his favorite number one student, and, like, done that, and so make Harry hate his own father.
Right,
like,
but Snape isn't like a evil, conniving revenge guy. Like he's
just petty.
No, he just can't stand the sight of Harry.
Yeah.
Like, it's overriding his better senses because Harry... You have to keep in mind, Harry looks identical to James.
Yeah.
Like, he looks the exact same as James.
Besides the eyes.
Yeah. So, he's... You're right that he's being, like, petty and traumatized, but he actually can't differentiate them, basically.
Yeah, but how he treats all students, not just Harry, is like, besides Malfoy and some of the Slytherins, is
so
awful.
One of the first, that was the very first, I think, Facebook page I made was called I Am the Main Character. And I never wrote anything on it, but the idea of what I was going to do was I was essentially going to write a bunch of fan fiction where I replaced the main character of some books.
Sorry, my spine's just trying to crawl out of me.
No. And the reason I did this in the first place was because I hated how stupid Harry was and how his reactions were so stupid in so many situations. And I wanted to, like, there's this part in book 2, 3, or 4 where Dumbledore says, "Is there anything you need to tell me, Harry? Anything at all?"
Yeah.
And Harry says, "No, there's nothing." Or maybe that was even book 1. If Harry had told him, it would have solved, like, the whole book right then and there, what was going on with his problems.
Yeah.
But he didn't. And it was... all Harry had to do was just tell Dumbledore this thing that... And it's not like he couldn't trust Dumbledore. Like, there was no reason for him to distrust it. He just didn't want to bring it up. And so it made me kind of rage and scream at it. But I think the more I read the books, the more I see them as people. The more... It's like, well, you're not going to make a perfect choice in every situation. And some people are obtuse idiots, and some people are narcissists, and some people do have traumas that make them be petty about the stupidest things. Like, you know people that
I just
get upset about the stupidest things, right? Like,
I just really, really hate injustice, I think.
Yeah.
And Snape's basic character is injustice towards Harry.
Yeah.
And Harry's friends at all times, even though he's supposed to be working with them.
I think when you know how it ends, it also really changes how you view something. Because the biggest problem with injustice a lot of the time is that when you read it in a book is that you don't know if they get punished for it or not. But once you know it, you sort of... Not that Snape really does, but you...
Well, no, it's meant to be a bait and switch of you're meant to feel sorry for him in the end, and I just...
But you know that Harry makes it out all right.
Yeah. No.
And that's part of it. Now, if I was rereading... There's a reason I don't reread books by Robin Hobb. Because there is no happy ending. Things just start bad and get worse.
Yeah, that's the thing, actually. That is helping me get through Harry Potter, is I do know that the scars never hurt again.
Yeah.
Is that the last line?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard in 15 years or something like that.
Yeah.
19 years, whatever it is. Yeah, now, like, the Soldier's Son series...
And all was good, isn't it? Or
All was well.
yeah, all was well. Yeah.
Yeah, she uses proper grammar.
I can't remember if all was well.
No, it's just... For some reason, you shouldn't say, I feel good, basically. And I don't actually know why. So, I think that go ahead and do it. I just have to justify my English lessons somehow. But no. The Soldier's Son series by Robin Hobb. This kid, his whole life he wants to be the best soldier he can be. He wants to be a soldier like his dad. He wants to do his dad proud. And he gets sick. He gets infected by a magical curse.
Yeah.
And so there's 3 cultures
you've told me about this book.
On the continent. And the biggest culture has no magic. And the Plains people, which are like First Nations, they're wind wizards and stuff. They have a magic based around a giant spinning stone in a desert. Yeah. And the forest people have the most powerful magic, but it's based around being fat. And so they curse him with this fat curse. And he gets fatter and fatter and fatter. No matter what he does, he gets fatter. He stops eating and his body starts taking in nutrients from sunlight and air and makes him fatter and fatter and fatter. And the school's like, you're outside of acceptable standards. You have to work out more. You have to cut your back. And then they're like, well, you're stealing food. We've restricted your food. So you have to be stealing food and that's dishonorable. And so they dishonorably discharge him from the academy. And his dad is like, wow, that's terrible. But I know first year is stressful, my boy. I'll get you whipped into shape in no time. And he's like, I'll put you in the hard work on the field. And he gets fatter and fatter. He's like, you're not working. You're slacking in your duties. You're not working on the field. He's like, no, Dad, I am. I'm swearing. He's like, no, you're obviously not. You're working hard on the fields. You'd be losing weight. And he's like, okay, I'm going to restrict you to only bread and water. And then he's still gaining weight. It's like, you're getting a servant to sneak you food. I'm going to fire all the servants. And he's like, no, I'm not. And then he locks him in his room and he's still getting fatter and fatter. And he's like, servants are sneaking you stuff. And then his mom dies during this time. And so his dad kind of goes crazy because he loved her absolutely. And he's like, you weren't there for her. You were just being so selfish. All you could think about was pigging out and eating, and you're a failure to the family. And we had such high hopes in you. And we put all our investment in you, and all you do is eat. And eventually the kid gets one of his servants to actually break him out of there, and they just run away. And he goes to the forest, and he ends up living with these forest people. And he ends up going to this village, but the village kind of kicks him out because he's fat and he looks funny. And he ends up... He does something that the villagers don't like, so he ends up being their grave digger, basically, for the village. And I think there's like a disease, and everyone dies except him. And they're like, you brought the disease to the village. And his dad just says, like, I never want to see him again. And they used to have this great relationship, and then he's like, I never want to see him again. Because I can't believe he turned into this lazy lion coward. And then he gets a notice from his dad. Well, he kept rejecting them because they were just these awful things. But then he gets one that his dad had had a stroke, and he gets it like months too late or something, basically. Yeah. And so he goes back, and his dad's like just this broken shell of a man that just stares at now and doesn't think, and goes and he sits with him, and that's basically the end of the book, and it's just the end of the series. and all her books are like that.
Yeah, no, I've never. I tried to read the
Assassin's Apprentice is kind of like that too.
I tried to read the Live Ship Traders, and I just couldn't get into it.
The Live Ship Traders is her hardest book to read. Not in terms of like the hardest emotionally is The Soldier's Son, but Live Ship Traders I think is the worst written. Like it's just very confusing and hard to read. It's written in a very flowery language that once you get into the rhythm of it, it's okay, but it takes quite a while.
Yeah, I'm happy I couldn't get past that because then I didn't want to read your books.
But The Assassin's Apprentice is one of the best series out there. Like the Tawny Man trilogy. And
it's funny because
and the Fool.
When you're reading Assassin's Apprentice, I was reading A Ranger's Apprentice. And you're saying it's basically a knockoff Assassin's Apprentice. And the last book in Ranger's Apprentice kind of ruins the rest of the series. And it's like, I can't recommend it to anyone because of the last book. It's like... This book is so awful what the author does to the main character. It's like, why?
Because he's copying Robin Hobb.
Maybe.
So,
Yeah, so with Harry Potter, but you know it's a good ending, so.
Yeah. So yeah, with that, at the very least, you have to, hint, I want to hang out sometime.
Yeah.
At the very least, say that. Don't trick yourself into thinking, we should hang out sometime. Counts. We should hang out sometime. That's just an emotional thing. Like, it would sure be nice to hang out is a compliment, but we should hang out sometime. That's like, okay, and it should rain every Thursday. Like,
let's hang out sometime is the next step of that, I guess.
I want to hang out. Or let's, yeah. Let us hang out some. That's better. But even better, as I think we've determined, is... I want to hang out Thursday, or do you want to hang out Thursday, or within this next month, are you See, even are you free is kind of another one of those socially loaded questions, I guess, because it's like, well, yeah, I'm free. I'm just not free for you. And you could say that to your best friend and it could be true. It's like, I have a lot going on, mate. I did a thing.
Well, I don't consider that free. That's where I don't consider that free.
I have a friend and she told me that a few years ago. Like she said, when I want to have time open for myself, like not even anything planned, I just want to have some open time in my schedule. She's like, I consider that being busy. And I said, wow, that's amazing. And so I took that from her. Like I was like, that is a great.
Yeah, and you told me that, so I use that as well.
Yeah, I was like, that's a great life tip. She gave, and but I think what happens is saying, I want to hang out sometime, or do you want to hang out when you're next free? Those are terms that you could say a little bit better, like, do you want to hang out sometime, or do you want to hang out in a month or whatever?
Yeah.
Or within the next month, or sometime this month.
Yeah.
Something like give a concrete time. All four of those statements are good, but the first two were much less good, and they're socially awkward questions because you put people on the spot. And I think what happened is people recognize that first bit, right? It's like, okay, we put them on the spot. That's kind of, that's kind of a little bit, it gives people a little bit of an extra having to think and fear in their lives.
So you lean in the wrong direction.
So then what happens is you say, okay, so there's clearly a line, but instead of drawing it right there, you go, well, you can't say anything. You have to just hint at everything. And so apparently, I've heard, I haven't experienced it, but Zoomers are experiencing this issue where they're not even, like, forget going up to a lady and saying, we are wed now. Or they're hanging out for months on end exclusively before one of them will decide that they're dating. And then they'll date for the rest of their lives until they break up and never get married. Like, well, we don't know that because they haven't been around for their whole lives. But even the concept of asking people on a date is like becoming this awkward social friction thing. And I think another problem with this is over text, it's so hard to communicate, right?
Yes.
And so, like, how I was saying, if a friend says, hey, do you want to hang out when you're next free? And I said it's really complicated to explain in that little snippet. It's impossible to explain over text.
Yes.
And so people are aware of this. They're like, okay, then we have to be a lot more gentle with a lot more outs over text. But what it does is then conversation falls apart completely. And you're like, well, I don't want to presume that because it's really easy to seem creepy on a text as well. Like, but the problem is that people try to avoid being creepy. So they say, we should go on a date or whatever. Haha, lol. And that's even creepier than saying, do you want to go on a date over text? But you're afraid to, oh, just kidding, unless that becomes even creepier than just saying what you want.
I really don't like texting. I mean, I remember your best friend accused me of being terrible at it, like communicating over Facebook. And I am actually quite bad at it. Part of that is because I generally hate using writing to communicate with people, like unless I'm writing a story or something. It is so frustrating because it just takes me a lot of effort. But the other thing is you don't get the conversation, you don't get the human interaction, the engagement. I was thinking this the other day, I think I've even said this to you, but I'm dealing with bureaucracy at multiple levels right now. And so much bureaucracy has moved to do it through this online thing and like sign up online here. It's like, no, I want to see a person to do this with so they can help me with it. Or if they're unhelpful, then I have
stab them.
Well, I have a face to blame for my troubles.
So,
because it's just, and also it's like, all right, so I needed a form to be done. I was like, okay, so what form do I need? So I sent off the email, and then they get back to me about 2 hours later. All right, you need this form, and so I send it to them. And they sent it to me. I find 2 hours. I sent back to them another 2 hours. It was like, oh, sorry, you need a different form, or you filled that out wrong here. If I was there, like I actually had this because I went to a different place, and I was actually there physically, and I was filling out the form, and I gave it to them. I was like, does this all look right? It's like, oh, no, you need to do this here. If I'd been there with that person signing out that form, it's like, all right, here's the 2 pieces of information I have to work with. My driver's license and this one piece of paper I was given on this whole thing. So this is all the information I have. Now, I am going to be in this room at this desk until both of us have it figured out. We're stuck here together.
When I updated my passport, it was a nightmare because I had to fax information to Ottawa to an office that was only staffed 2 days a week. And then they had to fax back what I got wrong. It's like, nobody uses fax. What are you doing? I had to like jury rig a fax machine. I had to get a fax app on my phone and then take a picture and use my phone as a fax machine. It was a nightmare.
Yeah, no, so I very much...
Yeah, bureaucracy is awful.
But that's one thing with bureaucracy, like, just adding that layer of bureaucracy, but even with friends there's really only one friend that I talk to over the phone. And
yeah, in person you just get it done with,
Yeah, so the amount that we text each other is, do you want to call each other? We used to do that. I stopped because I found that stupid. I just call them. And it's like, it's now a good time? No, I'll call you back later this evening. Okay.
Well, so this is the progression, right? You used to go to your friend's house, knock on the door and say, hey, are you free? Yeah. And they're like, no, I'm busy. And you're like, go away. And they're like, okay. And they leave. And now it's like, you phone them, hey, can I come over in like the next hour? It's like, okay. And then it's like, hey, can I text you to phone you? It's like, hello. You just receive a letter in the mail and it's like, you'll be receiving a text message in the next hour. Turn off your phone if you do not wish to receive it. Then you check your phone and it's, can I phone? And then you're like, yes. And then they're like, hello, can I come over? And you're like, you may.
No, I'm saying I've started going back in the other direction from there.
I think it's the reason phones became popular is because there's a massive utility benefit there.
Yes.
It's so useful to phone ahead and say, hey, are you free? Because then you're not driving way out of your way. And you're not imposing on someone that might, they might be on a fancy dinner date. They might not be at home at that moment. They're not... And then you're like, okay, phone's great. But then...
Well, it's very fancy. If you were a very fancy person, you could have a boy run out with a letter to someone's house and, at your leisure, would you respond to Mr. and Mrs. Smith about joining you for dinner tonight, or joining them for dinner tonight?
So it's always been possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, actually, when I was 6, I drove all around with my mom's help.
Yeah.
All around the neighborhood, like quite a massive area, actually. Yeah. And I had printed out a bunch of scrolls with a fancy invitation to my birthday party on them, and I left on the doorsteps of all my friends.
Yeah.
I didn't go around phoning them. I left this rolled up scroll.
I went around phoning all of them. I had a list of all my friends' names.
Oh, I normally did that. This was 1 year.
Yeah.
When I was 6. But you can always do that, is my point. But the problem is, so the phone, it's a problem with everything. It's like cryptocurrency, right? It's like, this is a great technology. And then you can like attach the tumor of NFTs to it. And with phones, it's like, okay, you can call ahead. That is a good use. You should probably call ahead instead of just knock on their door in a lot of situations.
I kind of like to just knock on their door, honestly. Like, I've always found it was really cool in Archie comics where, I mean, Archie get annoyed by it sometimes, but it's like there's this one comic where he's there and there's a knock on his window and he wakes up and Jughead's outside. And Archie gets out of bed and opens up the window and Jughead jumps in. And then they both walk down from his room together and have breakfast. And I always thought, oh, what? That's like a sweet friendship kind of thing. And just, they are close enough to do that with each other. And they just like, yeah, this is what they do.
Yeah, but it depends on the friendship and the situation and everything. They're best friends, right?
Yeah.
And Jughead was a good enough friend probably to know when to do that and when not to do that.
Well, the comic actually was focusing on that he was getting a little too close.
Yeah, so that's the point. You need to know when to do it and when not to. But a phone fixes that problem, right?
Yeah.
But then it introduces this option of people realizing that you are always available to them now. And so they think they are entitled to, like, they don't think this consciously, but essentially by phoning someone and expecting someone to pick up, you think you are entitled to someone's time all the time.
Yeah.
But the thing, and that makes phones pretty annoying. But then you make the phone portable.
Yeah. And
suddenly they're entitled to conversations with you at any point.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I remember it was 2015. It was Valentine's Day, 2015. And I went for a walk. I was like, I'm going to go for a walk. Just went for this lovely walk, 3-hour walk. Came home. I think I've talked about this before on the podcast even.
Yeah.
Look, I'm a hypocrite, okay? I do repeat myself. I'm sorry, but it's relevant. I came home and I had gotten this. I was in a group chat at the time, which I wouldn't recommend. But the group chat had just blown up with like, why isn't Cameron replying? Where's Cameron? I can't get a hold of Cameron. I don't know where Cameron is. I got a bunch of messages like, where's Cameron? Where's Cameron? Where's Cameron? Where's Cameron? And I was like, I was gone for 3 hours. And and it was an awful feeling. It was like these people thought they could get a hold of me at any time, any place. I really didn't like it. I'm very, like, I don't know, hermit inclined in a sense. Like I want to choose when I see people. My ideal world, right?
You're the weirdest extroverted introvert.
Well, no. Here's my ideal setup, right? Everyone has a cell phone, including me. Okay.
Yeah.
No one can send me messages. Mine is a one-way cell phone. This is my ideal setup. I can send people whatever I want, but they can't get a hold of me.
That sounds like a you problem.
I think even if I like talk to them on the phone, I can't hear them. I think that would be good as well.
Do it. Click.
But
Mr. Big over here.
Since I can't have that world, I'd rather not have a phone at all.
You have your butler walk over with a black phone in the tray. It's, do it.
No, see,
And then you have the red phone.
When I'm alone, I want to be alone.
Yeah.
Which is true of everyone, I think. I think, like, this is important. You need to be alone sometimes.
Yes.
And you can't be alone if you have a phone. But so when you're alone, you need to be alone. And when you're with friends, you need to be with friends. And phones ruin that as well because everyone's on their phone texting. Now, I don't mind when people are on the bus texting or something because, well, I was thinking about this, right?
Speaking of that dirty laundry with the family, our dad does this thing where he's like, do you want to watch these shows together?
Yeah.
And we're watching Picard currently.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, sure, I'll watch the 2 episodes that are out. And then we're both there. I'm sitting there watching it. And he's sitting there on the couch with his phone. And I'm and he's like semi-paying attention to it. Every once in a while he'll look up. And that's like the next level because he falls asleep when we watch things. And then you can like poke him or pinch his nose or whatever. And he wakes up and is like, whoa, what happens? And then you tell him. But like him being on the phone next time we do it, I should say, please put your phone away.
Yeah.
Like I should just express that.
Smallest possible thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Maybe even to introduce the concept. It's a good one.
Yeah.
I think that the older generations, they used to make fun of like millennials, like, oh, they have no attention span, they're always doing their... But who is the generation that watches the 3-hour-long podcasts all the time and will watch educational videos for hours on end and listen to music that's twice as long as it used to be, go to movies that are twice as long as they used to be, and then the older generation, they can barely stand to watch a 10-minute explanatory film that would change their lives. They're like it's crazy how they'll be like, oh no, this like it's the problem with progressivism, right? You can't tell anyone about it because they're like, oh, this thing doesn't exist. It's like, here's a 10-minute video that will completely change your mind, and it's like, I can't watch a 10-minute video. That's way too long. I'm busy with my TikTok and I can't watch TikTok too long though because I'm watching like the older generation has no attention span, and the younger generation has a massive one. Like it's the young people watching Joe Rogan, not the old ones. And movies have doubled in length. Songs have doubled in length. Commutes are longer than ever. I mean,
usually when people are listening to Joe Rogan, though, they're also working out or
yeah, but they're not
video
like
game.
They're not like watching TV and like you can't follow 2 threads at once. You think you can, but you can't.
No, you can't.
I was trying to listen to a podcast while playing Minecraft, which I love doing. But the problem is I'm playing Thaumcraft right now. And I realized that I don't have the brain power to do both at the same time.
Yeah, no, think about trying to talk and do Thaumcraft at the same time. And
well, then at least I'm on the same track.
yes.
I mean, oh, Connor, this is me. Okay, so let me rephrase. I'm trying to listen to a podcast, talk, and play Thaumcraft at the same time.
There.
I think just because I'm alone, I'm not talking. Well, with this throat thing, I've been talking less, and it's definitely been tricky to do things. Because it's like, how do you walk without going left, right? No, so it's a bigger idea. This,
your superpower that you got from that rad generator of you hypnotize yourself.
Auto hypnotism, yeah.
Yeah. You're thinking about how can you even walk without going left, right? It's very appropriate for you.
With the auto hypnotism, yeah. No, I can walk without talking though. Well, I mean, I can walk without talking about walking. But so there's the talking about this saying what you want, right? Very important.
What you really, really want.
Yeah. And like, I want to go on a date with you, or it would be nice to hang out sometime, right?
Yeah.
Saying what you want, very important. And then there's this, do this thing. Why? Because I said so. And it's like, no, that's wrong. Even though Sargon says you have to be like the authoritative, do this. But no, what you do is you teach your kid to say, I don't want to do this. You teach your kid, okay, when I tell you to do something you don't want to do, you tell me you don't want to do it. And then I'll make you do it anyways. But I will listen to you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a point, if you say, all right, we're going to the park. Then you're like, I don't want to. Whoa, I didn't even realize the kid didn't like the park. It's important you tell me this so that I know you don't like the park.
I'm a chubby little bugger, and my brother's 3 years older than me, and I just can't keep up with an athlete and a boy who's in an athletic program.
You shouldn't justify yourselves. You don't have to justify yourself. You can have wants and needs. But the parent knows best, hopefully, right? The parent knows best, hopefully. And so, but they have to listen to you. They have to show that they listened. It's like that Jordan Peterson thing where if you're in a big argument with someone, you should steel man the other person's position until they are satisfied with your interpretation, and then you move on, right? Yeah. Now, and keep in mind, understanding someone's position, this is another thing that gets wrong all the time. Understanding someone's position is not agreeing with them. Those are two different things.
Yes.
And it's, most people, I think, actually don't, I think most people are aware of this, but most people also fall into that trap.
Understand your position. You're insane.
No, that's wrong. No, because everyone has a rationalization, right?
Yes, your rationalization is you're craving loony mad.
No, you're down the creek. Just because, and I think this is what makes I've talked about this before, right? When people get really upset and they start wailing about some injustice that's done to them. Like, so my example was my favorite pillow was taken away from me, and I was just I was like shouting and whining all night long about how I missed my pillow and I wanted it back and you need to give it back to me. And I think what's going on there in these temper tantrums, I was way too old for this as well, I was like 12. These temper tantrums, what's going on there is you are trying to show the person how much they're hurting you because you think they don't understand you. And if they understood you, then they would do what you said. Mm-hmm. And that's a borderline response. That's exactly what borderline is. It's like, if you understood my pain, if you actually understood me, you'd be my slave. That's why I call the borderline the power bottom.
So you're saying all 3-year-olds are borderline? Or 2-year-olds?
Yes, absolutely. They don't. So personality disorders, you can't actually give to anyone below the age of 18 or 16, maybe. For example, antisocial personality disorder, like where you're violent and you attack people. Yeah. You cannot ascribe even the beginnings of that to a 2-year-old because all 2-year-olds are supposed to be violent and attack each other. Yeah, no. These,
they're little savages.
Was it Freud or was it The Stages of Development by
Pinochet?
Yeah, I think that's the one, maybe.
I don't know them, I just know the name.
Yeah, I think that might be it. But it was basically every mental illness is stuck development at a different age. So it's like, okay, you're borderline, you're stuck at 2. You're or maybe 3. You're a antisocial personality disorder, you're stuck at 2. You're that sort of thing, basically. Yeah. And Freud did this too with his anal retentive and oral fixation and that sort of thing. Yeah. Well, so the idea was that if you don't give a kid any control over their own life, right? Mm-hmm. So you don't tell them, I understand you, but we're doing this anyway, or I understand you. Okay, I didn't realize you didn't like that, let's do this. So one example, that horrible thing that was done to both of us, although you were much more resistant, was we were asked questions that there was only one answer to. It's like, do you want to do this? No. Well, too bad, you're doing it anyway. So don't ask a question then. Yeah. No, just give me an order. I'd much rather have an order than being asked a false question, because eventually what you do is you just start trying to guess the right answer. And it's like, it's more disempowering than just being told what to do every day of your life. So basically, if kids have no control over their lives, then Freud's idea was that they will control the only thing they can, so they will prevent themselves from pooping. So they'll be anal retentive. They'll clench their sphincter and they won't poop. And this is a behavior. So perfectionists, people that are like, no, everything has to be just this way before I go out. Like, I'm not getting in that car until I have my makeup done perfectly. That sort of thing, right? That is a person who never had any control over their life. So they take control wherever they can. And that's what an anal retentive personality is. And oral fixation is someone who wasn't breastfed enough. They weren't given enough attention and love. And so in order to feel... and so they have this hole of like, I feel empty because people didn't actually care about me. They didn't love me. And so you become a smoker, or you become a drinker. Or
you need to motorboat people.
No. Or you become gay was, I think, one of Freud's things. Was if you weren't loved enough, you'd become gay. But it's like a very solid theory in a lot of ways. But yeah, so they are 2-year-olds. So there's a lot of these concepts. So I was reading this little book of wisdom, right? And I was flipping through it, and I was like, it has a bunch of little bits of wisdom in it, right? Yeah. I was reading along, and I was disagreeing with the book. I was like, no, wrong. I took out a pencil, and I started scratching stuff out in the book, and I started writing on the opposite page, because the opposite page was blank, the correct answer to these things. I was like, no, this is not a healthy response at all. Like, one of it was serve other people. Another one was you should do stuff for other people even if you really don't want to. And so I was like, no. There was some good ones in there, and then there was some ones that were worded poorly, and so I was like scratching those out. And I wasn't, first of all, it's my book, so I can do what I want to it.
Yeah.
Secondly, I wasn't blacking out the pages. I was crossing them out because I was thinking this could be an interesting style of book. I don't think anyone's ever done it. You can almost learn more if you have a cross out example next to the correct example, because sometimes it's not enough to say it's not enough to say. Sometimes if you say it is enough to say and then you cross it out, you're saying, I'm not quite sure what this is, but it's not quite this.
Yeah.
And that helps you focus in on what it actually is.
You're not blacking out and doing it backwards.
Yeah.
So you can't even read the words.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is it would be an interesting book where to describe a person, like let's say there's a person who is very big, right? Like a very tall person, except they're not tall. They're just big, but they're not like massively tall. Yeah. So you wrote, a man walked into the room. He was tall. And then you cross out, he was tall. Like if you read a book like that, that'd be really interesting. Like he was a large man. He was tall. And then you cross out, he was tall. So you're like, okay, so he's not tall, but he is large.
Yeah.
You could also just write, he was large, but not tall. But I think just crossing it out, it's more efficient. And it also suggests that there's a little bit more wiggle room there.
Yeah.
I think there's room for exploration in writing that way. I think it would be an interesting idea.
He's a tall glass of water, and then you scratch out the water.
Yeah. But you...
I don't even know what the term tall glass of water means.
Well, it means you're refreshing to look at. Like,
is that what it means?
Yeah, it's like, what a sight for sore eyes type of thing.
Okay, it's refreshing to look at. See, I never got he's a tall glass of water.
Yeah. So, at least I think that's what it is. So, this book, I think 2/3 of it I crossed out, and then the remaining of that, like half of it, I was like, no, this is worded wrong, and then there was almost the rest of it, I was like, no, this could be worded better. Yeah. And there's like 2 things in there that I agree with, like fully. And then there's a few things I put a question mark next to because I was like, really? That doesn't, like, happiness is through serving people, serving others. It's like, I've heard people say that, but
sounds like a guide for house elves.
I need to see someone prove it first. I've never seen anyone prove it. Everyone seems resentful and bitter when they're, like, the very people that say that seem resentful and bitter. It's like they're trying to convince themselves.
I think it's interesting. I think what they're seeing, like, the person who writes that, maybe even do it, so that the earnestness of me trying to give my friend a birthday present, like I want to give them that gift. And so the earnestness of doing that for someone that looks very good.
But you know what that is? That's like forgiveness, right? It comes naturally. You cannot train that.
Mm-hmm. I know, but that's what they're saying. You should be that person who's earnestly giving a gift.
Yeah, you should be the person that forgives everyone. It's like, okay, that doesn't mean anything. What you're saying is, your life should be so great that you freely give and that you freely forgive. It's like, yeah, okay, how do I make my life great? You're telling me nothing.
Yeah.
You're telling me nothing of value whatsoever. You're saying... You're looking at the finger, not the moon, right?
Seriously. So back when I think it was a year and a half into lockdown or so, so people are still wearing masks in public stuff. And I had the situation where I felt bad about afterward, but a man basically collapsed in the street. He wasn't the healthiest looking guy, and he's quite overweight, very big, and his wife was like trying to get him up, and she was screaming to anyone nearby, "Help me." And I just ran over and helped him get back up to his feet.
Yeah.
And I felt bad afterwards because I'd basically broken lockdown of touching someone and helping them get to their feet.
Shouldn't feel bad about that, but
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah, but I'm saying I felt bad about that, but it's like it was a natural. I didn't do it like, oh, I'm gonna go feel good about how it's just.
Yeah,
I ran.
you felt bad about the action, but you did the action naturally.
Yeah. Yes, I ran. I felt bad after the fact, even like
Yeah.
it was. It was the retrospect of it, but it was just like
But
I had to. It's not even like, oh, it's a duty I must do. It's like I just went over and helped him.
But-
There was no question about it.
But extra retrospectively, I hope you were aware that was a very good thing you did.
Yes.
And you shouldn't feel guilty about that at all.
Yeah, well, I talked to her mom about it, and she said it's fine.
Because, well, the thing is, right, everything is contingent on something else. And it's like, you, with a lockdown, if they work, you are basically saying, I am potentially preventing a 1% chance of a random person's death. Versus, I am absolutely helping someone in the here and now that needs my help.
Yes.
And it's like, yeah, that potential might be good if there's no cost associated with it. Turns out there's a massive cost associated with it. It doesn't turn out. It was pretty obvious to a lot of people from day one.
Yeah.
Maybe not me. I think I was more in the panic and hide mindset.
I was certainly in that mindset.
I don't think I didn't want anyone. The difference would be for me that I didn't want anyone else to do that. Like, my friends were still having parties and stuff, and I was just saying, okay, I'll be outside and hang out with you guys outside, but I'm not going inside.
Yeah.
And it's like, because I don't know what's going on, and I want to be safe. But I want to be safe for me. I don't care what you guys do. I don't have to control someone else to feel safe. I can isolate myself. And that's the way to do it, right? Like, it's like, oh, I'll control everyone else so I'll feel safe. It's like, you can't control everyone else. It's like, Stitch and Adam had this guest on recently, and he was saying, or it was saying, I guess because they were non-binary.
They were a creature.
Was saying that a lot of problems are because society has this expectation on people. I said, well, good luck fixing that. You can't change society. You can change yourself. You can change yourself to not care.
I think that's a Canadianism.
What?
The good luck doing that. Like the very flip, like Jordan Peterson has the good luck bucko. And he sounds so Canadian sometimes. When you said that good luck, it just seems...
Maybe I've just heard too much Jordan Peterson.
I don't know. It just seems very Canadian thing, though.
Could be. It could be. We actually have a unique way of ordering sentences. I have to look it up because I always forget. But we do something unusual. Like, we'll say, I'm going to the pool or something like that. And other English speakers don't do that. They'll say... It's weird. It's like, to the pool we were going or something. I don't know. Canadians speak English in a unique order, apparently, which I was not aware of. But yeah, it was kind of fun. So, this book of wisdom, I was just crossing things out, and it's all this stuff that, like, all of it was the sort of thing you'll see people say and maybe put on a poster or a t-shirt. It's like, oh yeah, these little platitudes that are correct, and except they're not at all, and they're deadly wrong even. There's a Jordan Peterson for you. It's deadly. Lead you to hell.
It is deadly, though.
And I think what happened was that wisdom has become house ruled, like Monopoly. Nobody understood the origins anymore. It's everyone is just getting it from the last person, and there's this game of Chinese whispers, and people are like, well, it'd be even better is if I house rule in this extra bit. And it's like, no, you're making the game twice as long and half as fun.
You need the old men back on the corner screaming at you.
You need to reread the original book. You need to reread the original Monopoly rules and realize that it's not a great game, but it's not a bad game.
You need to read the Bible.
And it only became a bad game because people who have no clue about game design added in a bunch of rules that don't work at all. Yes. And maybe seem fun on the surface, but aren't whatsoever.
They're rules designed to give them an edge where they think they can.
Right, but even then, like, you'll start the game with these rules, and you're like, yeah, this will be way more fun if we get the money when we land on the free parking. It's like, no. Monopoly has a game that has an end point. You're making it not have an end point.
Yeah.
Or even just and then you do all these house rules and you forget one of the most important key rules, which is any property that is landed on is bought.
Yes.
That makes the game way shorter. That's how the game's supposed to be played. Is any property that is bought on is bought. It doesn't matter if people only spend $1 on it, it's bought.
Yes. But you bid on it, don't you? Or...
Yes. So the first person that, I haven't read the rules in quite a while, so read them before you play the game. Don't take it from me. But I think what it is the first person that lands on it can buy it for the upfront price.
Yeah.
And if they choose not to, it goes on auction and they have the first bid. So they can say, no, I'm not going to buy it for $4.50. I'm going to buy it for $10. And then it goes around the circle and everyone can bid. And so Monopoly is a bidding game, which is, it's not a roll the dice and watch your piece walk around the center. It's actually a bidding game.
Yeah.
And that is way more fun. Because bidding is fun.
Yeah, Monopoly is not a 4-hour slog.
Yeah, it's a 1.5 hour bidding game. It's like it's a crazed stock market. Okay, I'll take 3. And now I believe you can only spend money. You cannot spend future favors, and I don't even think you can trade properties. I'm not sure about that one. But I think that could be a house rule that would work as trading properties, because the reason trading properties would work is and not favors. Favors is a bad idea for a lot of reasons. But trading properties works because the game is still moving towards an endpoint. You in board game design, this is incredibly important. It's less important in video games, but in board games, this is incredibly important. You need every single action in the game to be a ratchet that takes you closer towards the end.
Yes.
And the end cannot be indefinite. Every single move has to move you closer towards the end of the game. That's why in Magic, if your deck runs out, the game's over.
Yeah.
Like, you can keep healing yourself up, you can keep taking damage and healing, but the game has a hard end. As far as I'm aware, there's not cards that put cards back on top of the deck.
You can take cards out of graveyards.
Yes, but there's also exile.
Yeah.
And there's cards out of exile, which is a bad idea. Exile should be exile. But taking cards out of your graveyard only slows down taking cards from your deck. It doesn't make your deck thicker. There's no
true cards out of exile.
But also, like, if you take cards out of your graveyard, you're still slowly bringing your deck down. You're never adding to your deck. The game will always end.
Yes.
Unless there's a card like you draw no cards on your turn, which I think would be a really bad idea.
There is a card that restarts the whole game and it gets exiled.
Yeah.
So.
But that still has an end point, at least. Kind of annoying, but it does have an end point. And I think it also gets rid of, like, all cards in exile stay in exile and a few other things, I think. The second game is a lot faster.
Yes.
Yeah. If you had a card like that was like, and everyone does double damage as well, that would be useful. Yeah. So so people that understand board game design, you can add little house rules to Monopoly that might be more interesting, or not even more interesting, just different.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times it's actually very hard to improve a game by modding it.
I think Monopoly is actually a fine game if you play it the way it is.
Yeah.
There's just better games like Rat Race.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that a large part of this podcast is actually untangling the house rule mess of wisdom in quotation marks that's gone everywhere. And because
that's what it's become for the last little bit anyways.
Because everyone's like, you turn to anyone for help and advice, and they're all giving you the wrong advice and the wrong help, and they're writing these books that they say all the wrong things, and it's like something is horribly broken.
Well, there's a old bit of advice, so to say. I can't remember exactly, and it's very close to the Princess Bride of nothing better than true love. If someone tells you otherwise, they're trying to sell you something.
Yeah.
But it's it's along the lines. I'm having a lot of trouble trying to remember it.
Life is pain. If anyone tells you otherwise, they're trying to sell you something.
It's not even someone's telling you otherwise to try to sell you something. It's not that line. It's not along that line. It's anyone trying to tell you something is has their own reasons for doing it.
Well, unsolicited advice is like, you should never give unsolicited advice.
Yeah, it's basically along the lines of unsolicited advice, but it's basically like everyone has their own motivation for telling you something.
But there's even people that are trying to help and earnestly trying to help, and except the advice they're passing on to their children is garbage.
Well, Terry Pratchett has a line, which he said, the problem with having an open mind is people try to put stuff in it.
Yeah, but I don't know what happened. I guess it's probably cycles.
Yes.
It's just like people understood what they were doing,
I think it's
and then they forget, and then everything falls apart because they forgot, so they have to remember their roots, and then they build it up again, and it just...
I think also 2 world wars happened.
Yeah.
And the impact of those wars was far greater than just people.
Yeah. So this time round, the wars were the problem, I think, yes. Yeah. But you look at like the 1400s maybe. I'm not exactly certain here, but the Bible became a cudgel instead of a useful tool, and people didn't understand the Bible.
Yeah.
They were preaching the Bible without understanding it. So
It
this
probably does just cycle.
This happens over and over throughout history, where people, they repeat the words of their fathers without understanding why their fathers said it.
Well,
There's a great line in Dark Tower, actually, which is, "You've forgotten the face of your father." It's like, you don't know why you're saying what you're saying.
I think we talked about this before, and we were talking about the good men.
Yeah, strong men, weak men.
Yeah. So, think about it in this way: so you have a hill.
Ignorant leads to chaos. Chaos leads to wisdom. Wisdom leads to stagnation. Stagnation leads to chaos. Something like that.
You have a hill. Let's say this hill's you have a hill, and higher up you are on this plane. Like if you jump, you're higher, and this hill goes up forever, and that hill is potentially, I don't know, but is the progression of humanity. Now, the point of which we track humanity is attached to a wheel, and it's a dot on a spinning wheel, so it's on the wheel side.
Yeah.
And so you put the wheel down on the hill, and so humanity's at a low point, and it rolls up the hill, and humanity's at a high point.
And it keeps rolling, and it's at a low point.
Yeah.
Yeah, sort of general progress upwards, potentially.
Yeah, and so the progress kind of looks like a...
I don't know if things really actually go up a hill. I think it's more like a flat plane, potentially.
And we're just rolling on that wheel?
Yeah, but
I don't know. We don't murder each other anymore.
But is that good? Like,
I think so. I don't want to be murdered.
But depression numbers are pretty high. Like,
I'm not talking about war. I'm talking about murder.
Right. I mean, yeah, I guess it depends on the place. There's a lot of murder in some places. Like El Salvador, 1 in 1,000 people per year.
Yeah, still not as much as there was.
No, that's what it was.
No, but I'm saying the 1,000 in 1 year.
No, 1 in 1,000 people every single year.
Yeah, I'm saying that's like there's tribes that's like you had a 50% chance of dying by murder.
Right, but that 1 in 1,000 per year.
Yes.
People live for 80 years.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's only like a 1% chance, I get, or a 10% chance of being murdered. But 10% is pretty high. But yeah, you're right. Like in Italy, it was 25%, I think. Yeah.
No, in Italy, for young men, it was 80 or 70.
Yeah, it was
like
really,
you did not live if you were a young man in Italy.
Yeah, in the 1500s. Yeah, it was really high.
Yeah, we don't murder each other. Most people have enough to eat.
But it's not good stuff. Okay, here. Was there a time before the Younger Dryas that we were at a higher point? Like, I guess is a sort of, where the time when all this human wisdom came from a lot of people doing a lot of hard work.
Yes.
And we have no idea who they were anymore. It's almost like we lost a massive... I mean, well, Graham Hancock talks about a species with amnesia, but it is like we've lost our origin story.
Yeah, but also...
It's very sad.
The ancient technology, that the concept... I used to think it was funny. It's like the ancients had more technology than us. But culturally...
It's different, at least.
Yeah, like cultural wisdom-wise more. Like just even that concept of like, it's old technology, it's more advanced than what we had, like in a fantasy story. It's, like, we've forgotten the face of your father. It's
very...
Culturally, this wisdom that we're looking at, it's like, oh, okay, we're kind of using it wrong.
It's like there was this unbroken chain, but it broke. we don't know who our ancestors are.
Well,
like, you know, the First Nations in Canada, they always talk about how sad it is that they've lost this chain to their past, right?
Yeah.
But all of humanity has.
Yeah. I think they're
not wrong. They're not wrong.
The parting bit of uplifting wisdom to that miserable sediment.
I don't think it's miserable. I think that...
Or just real. I think it's kind of sad.
Okay, this is really important, though. This is the hero. The reason that the hero is the one who is constantly seeking, and the reason the hero is the one who walks between the yin and the yang, and the reason the hero is seeking the infinite sandwich is because if your only goal is to arrive at wisdom, your grandchildren will have no idea why that wisdom is relevant. They might parrot it, but they will house rule it and they'll forget it and they'll Chinese whisper it, and you'll get where we are now. But if you have a culture of heroism, which is really interesting, that the main thing that societies push for was not a message. It wasn't do this, do that, do this, do that. It was like the 10 Commandments are maybe the closest thing we have, but the main message was always be a hero.
Yeah.
Because being a hero, if everyone on Earth is a hero, or even, I don't think everyone can be a hero, but if 1 in 100 people is a hero, then maybe you never have to go into that dark valley of ignorance. You always have a shaman who has gone into Hades and seen the depths of hell and is able to tell you what was there and how to avoid it. I think there's a singer, I don't know if you've heard of him, called Ren.
No.
I'll show you his songs after. He's kind of ruined music for me because he's really, really good, but he's also, like, his songs are so painful to listen to that, like, I don't want to listen to his songs, but I don't want to listen to anyone else's. But he was stuck inside for 8 years, basically. And he got out and the pandemic hit. It's very similar to me in a lot of ways, the way he was telling it. His sounds worse, but similar to me in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
A lot of depression, a lot of tiredness, fatigue, couldn't do anything, very creative guy. And now he's like this ridiculously amazing singer now that he's on the up and up.
Yeah.
And singer-songwriter. And I got this weird idea of like a crucible. Like, it's almost like there's aliens torturing earthlings to create superheroes. Like people like Ren and people like Spartacus. Like these people that they live through or people like Diogenes or Socrates. You send a person through hell, Marcus Aurelius, you give them the worst things that can happen in their life. And those that survive become these beacons they become the greatest beings in the universe. And it's like the aliens or the angels or the demons are like, that's what we're doing. We're creating these superhumans to because that's what the human species is all about, is this horrible crucible of not everyone makes it, but those who do are like gods. it's yeah, you're a good thing, I guess.
Yeah. Which was, I mean, you kind of said it, but I was going to say it much more simply in some ways. Is I think it's Pippin. Yeah, Pippin asked Gandalf, why is it our lot to live in such times as these?
Yeah.
Such dark times as these? And Gandalf says, it is not as such our lot to live in such dark times, but to spend the time that we have left. It's basically that thought. Can't remember exactly what, but he's saying, yeah, we're born in a time that sucks, but it doesn't mean our life has to suck. It's we do what we can with what time we have left.
Yeah.
Butchered that.
But what does that mean exactly? We do what we can with the time we have left.
So it's saying, yes, you're born in dark times,
yeah.
But it is not your fate to be born in dark times. It is your fate to live your life.
I don't think I understand.
Well, maybe if we have it more clearly.
I'll think about it. We can end there. I'll think on it. But basically, I think the eternal hero. The window just closed for a moment. We thought we just lost the podcast. I think the eternal hero is the lesson to teach, like Orpheus, where you just, and Pythagoras, lead and they will follow. Look back and you'll lose them forever. Like, yeah. And it's we may have lost our link to the past, but at least we kept the hero as a message, or we rediscovered it. And it might be impossible not to rediscover it, because it seems the wider I look, the more it all comes back to the dance between order and chaos.
Yeah, and it's our lot.
And or it's what is.
Yeah. Or
it's what it is for humans.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's our lot.
It's like the human experience is a sphere, and if we go too far in one direction, we end up back where we started. And we can't expand outside. Like, it doesn't matter if we say, oh, the universe actually looks like this, and it's like, yeah, that's what we said 10,000 years ago.
Well,
and it's like,
I've had this thought, like, different ways of looking at it, and I think I've gotten the answer wrong quite a few times, and this answer is probably not entirely right. But it follows what we've talked about with the infinite staircases. What's the meaning of life, the universe, and everything? And
just to do what you want.
Well, that was part of it. That was one of my initial thoughts, is like to have fun or do what you want.
Not have fun. Do what you need to do. Be authentic. Serve God.
Like, my kind of new answer to that as well is, what is the meaning of life? The answer is yes, and it's to find the meaning. Yeah.
Well, yeah. That's the same thing as that Malazan story, right? Yeah. I'm looking for a good man.
Yeah.
It's like, well, the only man that is good is the one that is looking.
Yeah.
And it's the same as the infinite stair. It's the exact same thing.
Yeah. That's why I say it's what we talked about.
But it's like, no matter how wide you go, you come back to the same answer. It's be a hero.
Yeah.
be a hero. Yeah. Right.